That's right. They thought they were cool. Well, how cool are you today? Can y'all make up a rap song about this?
Hello. Welcome to Get Ranked, 70s rock bands edition. Let's get right introducing our guests. Right down at the bottom, we have that 70s rock fan. How's it going, man?
Pretty good, mate. Good evening to you all, and thank you very much for having me here. I appreciate it.
Oh, no problem.
You've made a happy man very old.
Next up, we have Paul. What's up, man? Paul Duke.
Howdy. I was running late. I'm like drenched in sweat trying to get everything set up, and but I made it, and I'm stoked. I'm excited. I was happy to see. I was in the intro twice. Wow.
Yeah.
Kick-ass music, Paul, by the way. That's
Thank you.
Yeah, for anyone who's new to this, that's the man who created the music that you heard. It's awesome. And next up, we have CJP. What's up, CJ?
Howdy, guys. How's it going? I'm looking forward to this list.
Oh, yeah, I am too.
Because this is past Dermy's age, so we won't get any butthurt comments from him.
Yeah. And he tends to stick to like pop, so I'm sure if Britney Spears was on here, he'd be all upset.
Well, I think all Dermy's butthurt is going to come from eating like shit at Anime Matsuri this entire weekend.
That's very true.
From Camelot, so
that too, yeah.
Yeah, that green-haired anti-liberal put out a cursed picture earlier of Dermy, and oh god, it still can't get out of my head.
You can see his crack.
It's
nasty.
What, did he cosplay as a plumber?
He's Mario.
An out-of-work bricklayer.
He cosplayed as Dermy auditioning for a career at Hooters. And being serious about the career part.
Nasty.
Here is our list. Okay. Go ahead and read the rules.
I don't get to introduce myself?
Oh,
no.
Sorry, I got sidetracked. Extra
This
Zero.
is Extra Zero.
Co-host.
He's nobody. Who cares? Who cares? Move on.
Well, I'm Extra Zero. I'm co-hosting the show. I'm also the producer for the Legion of Memers. We had an awesome show yesterday with Darth Call. Go check that out. It's a great interview with him. Awesome cosplayer. Awesome all-around dude. So don't miss that one. And if you're watching us here live, make sure on your way again, smash that like button because it helps us out in the YouTube algorithm. It's kind of hard to find Beelzebub right now. So smash that like button. Tell your friends. Be a friend. Tell a friend. So I'm going to get into the rules before we get into the reveal. So basically it boils down to this. This is how it's going to work. Devil will present every choice, and we're going to have the opportunity for a healthy debate using designated criteria to decide where it ranks. For tonight, we're going to be ranking based on popularity, songbook, cultural influences, and X Factor. And X Factor is really up to us. It's what we think makes that band stand out. If we're deadlocked on a choice, Devil's going to be our tiebreaker. We're going to have to persuade him with our best arguments for him to lock in his decision. In the end, we're going to have one last opportunity for adjustments, just in case anybody changes their mind prior to locking it in. And of course, that means, well, if you think one band shouldn't be on the same page as another, or you just changed your mind altogether, you got one last shot at the end. Other than that, the only rules are to please don't break the terms of service, because the only thing more powerful than the devil himself are the YouTube gods. So, without further ado, let's get into our reveal.
There it is. It's so impressive.
You said that in Woody Allen's voice.
So impressive.
So impressive. Ming Lee, get in here. You got to see it.
Okay, can we object already? Where's Kenny Loggins? No, I'm just kidding.
Because technically that would be Loggins and Messina.
Technically, yes.
Okay.
I was like, at first, I was like, well, wait, where's Elton John? And then he actually started in 69. So,
That's
of
right.
course, for anybody that's wondering, like, hey, why is a group that I like missing? Well, this was
Oh, sure.
thoroughly reviewed by Devil. Devil, do you want to go ahead and explain the method to your madness?
Yes, any band that was brought together in the 70s. There's a lot of bands that were in the 60s that got their popularity in the 70s. They don't count. This is only bands that from 70 to 79.
Now, question.
Okay.
I have a question. Are we judging only on the music they made in that decade, or their entire catalog?
No, you the whole catalog. That's exactly what I was going to go to.
Because I was
It's
about
'cause
to. Oh, sorry. Go ahead. Yeah.
Yeah, I was gonna say a lot of these bands you'll have like very little success in the 70s and 80s. They blew up and stuff. So yes, the whole catalog, their whole career, but only the ones that started in 70.
But, yeah, like Ozzy Osbourne, my question on him was he wasn't Blizzard of Oz in 81?
Blizzard of Oz was 78.
Was it 78? God, that was
Wow.
Yeah,
See, I
'cause
was
I
gonna
had
say
to, I had
First
to do
Sabbath.
some homework.
Yeah, so Sabbath or 60s, counted as 60s, I guess. Yeah.
Dude,
Yeah.
so many bands that I've been claiming. I'm like, yeah, I'm a 70s fan. Turns out to be like Doors, Led Zeppelin, all that. I'm like, oh yeah, they all started in the 60s. Damn.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah,
right.
look,
Rolling
going
Stone.
through this list, I found a lot of bands that I thought were completely 70s actually started in the 60s.
Yeah,
And,
yeah.
Like I said, Heart. I thought Heart started in the 70s. In fact, I thought they started like towards the end of the 70s, like 70 in mid, but nope, 68.
Yeah, both Yes and Rush are 68.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, okay, so our bands are Steely Dan, Journey, AC/DC, Bad Company, Boston, Cheap Trick, Def Leppard, Eagles, Electrolyte Orchestra, Foreigner, Kansas, Kiss, Meatloaf, Ozzy Osbourne, Peter Frampton, Queen, The Ramones, Aerosmith, Styx, The Marshall Tucker Band, Talking Heads, The Cars, The Clash, Tom Petty and the Heartbreakers, Van Halen, Alice Cooper, and Toto.
Toto.
Hell, because Africa, dude.
I
They
know.
should
No, I
be
didn't.
because
I
that
didn't know
song,
they.
Thank you.
I did
And
not know
Toto-
they started in the 70s.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Toto
I didn't
is
either.
Probably, other than the Wrecking Crew, one of the greatest collection of studio musicians ever put together.
Yeah.
Yeah. Decent.
All right. So we start off. We put everyone in the void to start off, and then we'll the discussion. All right. So how do you guys feel about Steely Dan?
I am an enormous Steely Dan fan from right back to the first album, Can't Buy a Thrill, when I was something like, I don't know, 10 years old or whatever, when that came out. They are, and I've seen them live, when both of them are still alive. They are possibly the most musical band on this list.
Mhm.
Most musically adept band on here. Love them.
Their
Yeah.
cultural impact was on other musicians, though, more than the general public.
Yeah.
Is anyone else listening to the music while we're talking about it? I got
In my
Spotify
head.
pulled up right now. I'm listening, and I'm like, oh
In
yeah,
my
do
head.
it again. Oh yeah, right on.
They are, again, he's right. They're some of the most incredible musicians.
Incredible musicians.
You have Michael McDonald doing backup vocals. How could you get any better than that?
Yeah, I mean the range of musicians they used incredible. Skunk Baxter, Jeff Skunk Baxter, and all those guys. They would get 10 guitarists and they would tell them all to do the solo, and then they'd pick the one they wanted. That kind of
Nice.
thing. They were but it never sounded like the stuff was constructed artificially. The songs always sounded really natural, and they had that wonderful fusion of jazz and rock, and rock jazzy edges and bluesy
Oh,
edges
yeah.
to the rock. There's nobody like Steely Dan.
No.
There's no one like them. So they are unique in that respect. I agree with CJP that the culturally maybe not as huge, but musically enormous.
Yeah.
So
Just-
they're definitely A tier, if nothing else. Just
Yeah.
for sheer musicianship.
Oh god, yeah, and the songs are just phenomenal. I mean even the first album, you think bands in the first album, they might give it a good go, whatever. Every track in that album's a classic.
Mhm.
Midnight
Yeah.
Cruiser and stuff like that just absolutely slays you when you hear it now. Their music sounds as fresh today as it did at the time.
Yeah.
Not
Just like-
every band can say that.
2 days ago, I was listening to Ricky "Don't Lose My Number" or that number.
Yeah.
Yeah, I
No,
mean, it was,
I know who we
Right.
forgot on here was Alan Parsons' project. 'Cause they did technically start in 78.
well, at the end, we do allow you guys to tell me what I missed, and we'll
Wild card.
rank them. They won't have, they won't
Wild
have a
card.
picture, but they.
Well,
you
where's
can rank
ABBA, for instance?
Yeah.
No, just, yeah.
Well, the
them.
Doobie
Oh, and I'm
Brothers
only
does,
half joking. I'm only half joking.
As Wookie B. Bad pointed out, Doobie Brothers were missing on there. Yeah.
Oh.
They were 1970.
But
My
I would
lists are
definitely
never
say A
complete.
tier.
Lists are never complete. Yeah.
I would say definitely say A tier at least. for Steely Dan.
Okay, so CJ's A. Where are you? 70s? A
For
S?
Steely Dan, A tier,
A tier.
the best.
What about you, Paul?
I could definitely say A or B. I'm not a huge
Sorry.
fan, but
What's the S tier? Sorry, I wasn't.
That's
paying
like the top of the top.
S
God,
tier's
yeah.
the top.
God tier, like
Yeah.
they could do
Because
no
I'm
wrong.
also looking at the fact that they were commercially viable for a period of time.
Right.
They didn't really move the culture itself. They weren't.
Right.
That-
we have to
Yeah.
take all the factors into account then. So
Yeah.
A tier. A tier is good enough for now. They're
For sure.
hovering in between the two. But
And what
Okay.
about you, Zero?
I'll agree with the A tier. I mean, I think that their influence on other bands it can't be denied. But ultimately, the cultural thing, it's like if you go to anybody today and you're like, hey, you like Steely Dan, they're gonna be like, who?
yeah, yeah.
So
All right. So we
They're
got.
still
our
not.
first
They're not
A.
moving the needle now. Like AC/DC
Yeah, right.
still moves the needle now.
yes,
Yes. All right. Next up, Journey. A little
Legends.
softer, but yeah, I like my Journey.
you
I-
want to talk a good catalog of music. I mean,
Yeah. And Steve Perry has one of the most iconic singing voices. Right,
Steve
right.
Perry.
Steve,
not Freddie Mercury, but he is one of the best to me. So
oh yeah.
Yeah. I mean, Journey. I mean, especially over the past few years, you've had the memes and like the cultural, like in Family Guy, and just Rock Band too. So like, Don't Stop Believing, obviously iconic through
Yeah.
almost
That's
every
one of those-
decade.
Like, Don't Stop Believing and Summer of '69. If you want to get a white girl wet, that's what you do.
Don't play both in a row then. Don't play the two in a row because it could be a tsunami.
She would definitely need to be rehydrated.
she's like, "What do I need you for?"
no, I think they really hit their stride in the '80s, though.
Yeah.
But
really-
Yeah,
Well, because they were really an offshoot of of Santana. If you really think about it, most of the members when it first started were from Santana.
Yeah, but what
Really?
about Frumius Bandersnatch? Who some of them came from? No,
Yeah,
just a band that it's a band that I just like saying the name of. That's all. I don't even know anything about them. I love the name. I'm probably going to be the contrarian on Journey because I've never been a big fan. I actually find their material slightly on the bland meets overblown side for me, and I'm not a Perry fan. I acknowledge their cultural significance now because of things like The Sopranos and as you say, other shows where their music has been featured heavily on. It's just that's a personal thing for me. I don't find them quite as appealing as some of the other bands on this list, but that's just me.
I
And
can
I
see
do-
that. I remember people like just really hating Journey. You know.
Journey
I've
got
never-
their own arcade game.
Yep.
I hate them. I wouldn't say I hate them, but I find that, and I don't find I can name more than 2 or 3 tracks without kind of starting to go a bit dry. The opposite of the tsunami effect. It's like,
Well, if you really want some fun, there's a version of I think it's Separate Ways on YouTube where they remove the music and then just add sound effects to what they're doing. So it's just them in the video with no musical background. It's way funnier.
that's cultural significance. Then. It could be a product of me being a Brit. I mean, I didn't move to
True.
North
Yeah,
America.
they're a
till-
lot more of an American.
I've only been in North America for 25 years. I grew up in Britain most of my adult life. They were not that big there, so that's a cultural thing for me. I wasn't that familiar with them until they really had the big hits, So
Yeah.
that's just me.
All right. So what is the letter we're gonna put them on, guys?
I would
0?
stick them anywhere A or B. That's
A or
my
B.
range.
It could be.
I would prefer C, but I'll go for B if you really force me to.
What about you, CJ?
I said I'd say B.
B?
I mean,
And
they had
Jerem?
enough cultural impact
Culturally, yeah.
to be upper on the list, but he is right. I mean, other than the hits, nobody knows any of their back catalog.
I'll give
Right.
them extra points for hiring a singer from YouTube. A sound-alike singer from YouTube. So I'll give them extra points for that. That's culturally significant. too.
Yeah. I want to say A, but I mean, I do think that they fell off a bit after, I guess after Frontiers.
Hmm.
But, there is a lot of cultural significance. I'll say B just for the sake, but in the end, I might shift on this depending on where we rank in advance.
All right. Next up, AC/DC.
S tier.
Oh yeah. I mean,
Yeah,
musicianship wise, I mean it's very basic, but it works for them. And the fact that they survived losing their lead singer and came back and were able to still maintain 35, 40 years beyond that, that's amazing in and of itself.
Yeah, I would agree. S tier. AC/DC are again unique, phenomenal band. I've seen them many times, including back on the Back in Black tour for the first time I saw them. That thing about them being simple is correct. The formula is simple, but it's executed with such brilliance that you don't understand just what's going on underneath that formula. And I think their significance is huge culturally. It's huge musically, enormously successful. I mean, how many bands have sold 100 million plus records? I mean, it's just
Not many.
Yeah.
not many.
Yeah.
So, and they've never sold out, in my opinion.
No.
How many bands have had that many hits as they've had, and let alone they had a great album in 1990. So 20 years later,
Yeah.
Razor's
And
Edge is a great album.
Yeah, and global impact as well. I mean, there's
Oh, yeah.
nobody on the planet doesn't know AC/DC and doesn't love them, which isn't always a good thing, but in their case it is, because they're a true rock band. They've never had to sell out. Yeah, they can actually get quite slick at times, but
And you've never heard anything bad about them. Like, there's never been any stories about weird, sex orgies or
Yeah,
Right.
You're right.
they're just like a bunch of blokes that like drinking in cars
Yeah.
and playing music.
Yeah.
and they feature one of the world's few bagpipe solos on a song. It's a long way to the top. So, and that shows their Scottish roots, of course.
Mhm.
They're Australian. They were all born in Scotland. But yeah, I love it. Very few people don't love AC/DC, so I think they've got to be S tier. I mean,
Right.
Oh.
I mean, I hear some like the people that don't like them is probably just because they don't like the screeching, kind of thing. So they just can't.
yeah, I was actually familiar with Brian Johnson before that. When in the band Geordie, they had a couple of hits in Britain before he joined AC/DC. So it was a bit of a surprise when he turned up as AC/DC singer. I'm like,
You
I'm
had, to think,
singing an octave
pressure.
higher than normally.
you had to think about that pressure because they were already popular with
Oh,
Bon
yeah.
Scott.
He was beloved.
And he was a beloved figure in rock. And then when he passes, and you have to come in and fill that shoe, and you just
Kill
have
it.
a
So,
spark.
balls of steel, yeah. Balls of
So
steel.
yeah, no matter what you think, their AC/DC is definitely S tier.
Yeah. And let's say
Love them or hate them.
who doesn't love watching Angus Young standing on a platform above the stage, soloing for 15 minutes with his shirt off and sweat flying everywhere? I mean, come on, that's like Picasso,
The iconic
or
guitar
Mozart, or
The hops,
dance.
Yeah.
Now,
Well,
is
I
it
think-
true? Oh,
I
sorry.
think he single-handedly made the SG a cultural icon. as a
Guitar, yeah.
yeah.
Now, is it true that they got their name off the back of a vacuum? That they saw a tag on the back of the vacuum that said AC/DC for the current, and that's where they got their name?
That wouldn't
Very
surprise me.
possible.
Very possible. Yeah.
I mean, the band Yes got their name from a Yoko Ono exhibit.
No, God save them. May God save them. As you,
I mean,
yeah.
Band names have come from weirder places.
Zero.
My
how
very
do you
fir-
feel?
I was gonna say my very
Well, I was
first.
out the
band-
gate. I said S.
Oh, you did? Okay.
It's
Yeah.
gotta be
What were you
S,
saying, Paul?
gotta be S.
I was saying you guys were talking about weird band names. My very first band's name was Chlamydia. So,
Did it ever catch on?
not really.
My sister, she writes short stories, and she actually she was writing a name for a band, and she's all, "What can I use it?" And she looked in the refrigerator and saw a bottle of Catalina dressing, and it said "Free Catalina" because it was fat free. So she put the band as Free Catalina, and I said, "Oh crap, that's actually a good name."
Yeah.
One of the best band names came out of the weirdest places.
Yeah. Yeah.
I always think
All
Dumpy's Rusty Nuts is a great name for a band. That was
Dumpy's Rusty Nuts.
There was a band out of Australia called TISM.
oh yeah.
They have some of the best song titles I've ever heard. I mean, their biggest hit was "Everyone Else Has Had More Sex Than Me," and they have another one. It's "Ode to John Bonham's Coke Roadie."
I know that song.
Their best song title, I swear to God, is "Thou Shalt Not" Britney Spears.
That's funny. That's funny. Yeah.
These are real song titles.
That's great.
She's got the jack. Yeah, that's Wookie Bad. She's got the jack. What a great record! It's a record about the sexually transmitted disease. and the closest thing that Angus Young once said in an interview, that was the closest thing they had to a ballad in their set. She's got the jack.
Okay,
Anyway.
Bad Company. Not everyone knows about them. I mean, they've had plenty of hits. They're a good band, but I've asked, I've talked to my cousin, and he's all, "Who the hell are they?" I was all, "Really?" You know, like, so.
Of course,
It's-
they really only had the hits off that first album. They've made
Like
music
Straight
since
Shooter.
then, and then Paul Rogers played with Queen for years. And he's a
Yeah.
phenomenal frontman.
I mean,
It's really that first album is what everyone remembers.
yeah. I mean, I actually was a little bit conflicted because I loved Free. I mean, I knew the band Free, Paul Rogers and Paul Kossoff, long before they formed Bad Company, and they were a fantastic band. You couldn't include them here because they started in the 60s. Yeah, I think you're right. I mean, they had an initial burst and kind of lived off that for quite a while, I think, then. In terms of so the longevity wasn't there. They went through various incarnations and a different singer at one point. Which was, yeah, so I think they've not really got the longevity the others have, and there's zero cultural impact, I would
No.
say.
So, I mean, they're C, maybe D tier. As much as there's such great music on that first album, but it was just that first album.
Right. Well, I mean, they had Rock and Roll Fantasy.
Yeah, it's a good track.
And
Oh,
then
yeah.
they also had Simple Man off of the Run with the Pack album. Or was that an album or was that an EP?
I'm not
But-
as familiar with their back catalog.
Yeah.
The thing is, they had some great tracks, but I would never go, that album or that album by Bad Company is one of my all-time favorites. Certain songs are, but not necessarily their entire catalog album-wise. I think to be on a higher tier, you really have to have people say, well, that album there is great, that album's great. Some of these bands have got great albums.
Yeah.
to me, Bad Company had some great individual songs. You know,
For me, the
feel like
best
making
version,
love.
the best
Yeah.
version of a Bad
Um,
Company song was actually off of Chef Aid on South Park.
Oh yeah,
Edgar Blansky singing "Feel Like Making Love."
that's right. Yeah, I mean, there's cultural impact for you. I mean, they're not a bad band. They're certainly not a bad band, and I have seen them live a couple of times. And there's a few other bands do like the Black Crows and bands like that cite them as an influence, but I think they've got to be in a slightly lower tier for me. Who could name anyone in the band other than Paul Rogers?
Exactly.
Even hardcore rock fans would struggle. Simon Kirk and whatever. The others would struggle. So yeah.
Okay.
Nothing wrong with
so
them. A great band.
how about you, Zero? How do you feel about them?
I'm gonna say probably a C from me. Just again, they have one really strong album, and after that, it's just a couple hits sparse. I mean, they're great musicians, but at the end of the day, where's the cultural impact? And 70 Rock fans said it's like, try naming some of the members, and yeah.
And not
They
really
did-
the longevity either.
Right.
I was gonna
Well,
say
C is a good place to put them. I mean, that's not bad. C is in the middle. Nothing wrong with that.
Right. Yeah. C, I would agree to C. I was gonna say the only cultural impact what is this song? Bad Company.
Yeah, right.
There's an episode of Sunny in Philadelphia that D starts singing it, and I'm just like, okay, this is the best song ever. So I'm a little biased. I want to give it a higher ranking, but I'm like, that's just Sunny in Philadelphia.
The only time you ever really hear their music is it's like either there's a movie or video game that mentions a Bad Company, and they're like, oh, we got to play Bad Company.
Yeah.
Shooting Star is used for like period pieces.
Right.
And then Feel Like Making Love is like kind of a meme at this point. So,
stripper song or
right.
insert sexual innuendo here.
I definitely agree. C.
It's a great strip club song for sure, but C tier sounds pretty good.
Yeah, I think I heard mostly C's, so there we go. All right, Boston. I love Boston. So how do you guys feel about it?
That
Zero.
first album is so good.
Yeah.
It is so good. The second album's not bad at all, actually, but it's really that first album that just came out of nowhere.
Yeah, the self-titled album.
Oh yeah.
I mean, when that album came out, I mean, I was like 14 or something. It just was absolutely enormous for me. That album, I could not stop playing that again and again and again. I was on a cassette as well. I had a cassette player. I could afford to buy lots of records. It just defined that summer that it came out.
Well, it really saved rock because rock was really kind of fading at that point.
Mm.
And that album came out, and then everyone's like, "Oh, I want to be in a rock band now."
Yeah, I mean, and then the second album, as you say, is pretty good. It's almost a continuation. I think it's over the years I've grown to appreciate it a bit more. But the problem then is that the gap between that and the third album is huge. It's like 10 years. So great first album, pretty good second album, and then a lot of silence. So you're kind of living off those two early albums. It's certainly an innovative production and guitar sound with that, multi-layered Les Paul thing going on with the Rockman sound. So there's a big cultural impact there because God knows how many bands attempted to sound like that after.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
I'm thinking B tier. I mean, the cultural impact is there.
Yes.
But it was just so short.
Right.
Yeah, and everyone does know that album cover though, which is also a cultural impact if you think about it.
Yeah.
People that don't even know rock or younger people would recognize that.
Yeah.
I think just because of the sheer importance of it at the time it came out, it probably deserves to be B.
What about you, Paul? What do you feel about it?
B sounds good. Because we're kind of like how we're talking about how like they did one good album and then fell off, and we're just talking about Bad Company. But Boston's on another level because as musicians, those you could hear it. They're tight, and they really did come out And like you said, they saved rock in the late or mid late 70s, and I could hear it. I could hear the influence for a lot of bands that I listen to. Boston's.
Yeah, if you consider what we would call arena rock to be a fairly new thing at the time that album came out, they really defined that.
Mm.
You know, the sort of we play big football stadiums and with this big rock sound type thing, and they're probably the peak band of that at that time in 77, 78. So they did have a lot of influence beyond just the fact that's a beautiful album, that first album.
Yeah.
Like,
What about you, Extra? How do you feel about 'em?
I'm gonna say B. You know, again, that first album is just so good. But again, kind of like Journey. It's just I would see and we'll probably have to come back at the end because I want to say they're better than Journey. They are better than Journey.
yes, they are.
But still, it's just like if you only have one great album, but they did say, let's go to B for now for me.
Okay.
Yeah,
They
they
tried
needed
to
to have.
DNA.
They needed more albums and more material that endured, rather than just the fact the first album has endured, in order to be higher than that. I think.
They all right. I think I heard mostly B's, so I believe B.
B sounds good. Yeah.
All
I'm going to be a bit biased here.
I love Cheap Trick.
I know
Surrender
my
is
Cheap
one of my.
Trick- I've got my signed Cheap Trick posters up on the wall behind me. somewhere.
Oh, snap.
Man, Surrender is probably one of the best songs. I love it. Right up there with Boston's "More Than a Feeling." And Africa. It's one of my favorite rock songs. So okay, who wants to start Cheap Trick off?
I just really quickly want to say that they created Guile's theme.
Oh, did they?
Listen to the Mighty Wing from Top Gun,
Mhm.
and tell me that isn't either Guile's or Ken's theme from Street Fighter. Just want to throw that out there.
Well,
Give it the time
and
of the game.
isn't that one of the tracks they didn't write though?
It might be,
Yeah,
but it
somebody
sounds
else wrote that, yeah.
just. Listen to it.
Because the record company told them, you got to try and get some songs in from outside writers so you can have more hits. So they grudgingly agreed.
And it
True
does,
enough. They
yeah.
got
No,
a hit,
'cause
so-
that doesn't, because when I hear that, it does not sound like a Cheap Trick song. So
It
definitely a
doesn't, no.
studio wrote that.
And
Yeah.
I love the idea that you have the two good looking dudes and then you have the two nerdy looking dudes. Like you gotta love that idea.
So I admit I'm thoroughly biased because I've seen Cheap Trick something like a dozen times, including back in the day, in the late 70s, first time. And I've met the band a few times. And they remain to this day one of my top 5 favorite bands of all time. And I'm trying to disassociate my love of them with the ranking. So
Well, that's your X factor, though.
Yeah.
that's my
that's
X
part of it.
factor. I don't know what it was about them. I think they just fit that niche for me of not a heavy rock band, but they can play some ferocious rock music.
Yeah.
Not a pop band, but they can play some really catchy pop. There's in that middle kind of niche for me that makes them pretty unique. And the image, somebody mentioned the image. The image is a fabulous creation that they made.
And
From
it's
the tune.
endured
Yep.
for a long time.
Yeah.
They've never really changed that image.
No, and the musicality of those guys is incredible. I'm obviously a deep fan of all the albums. There's a few dodgy ones in the 80s, but their albums in the 2000s onwards are brilliant as well. Not they don't sell much, but the cultural impact's huge. I mean,
Yep.
they've been in so many shows and like hell, they've created themes for like that 70s show or whatever.
Yeah.
Although that was a big Star song, really, that they adapted. But I don't think they belong less than A. I mean, they've had a substantial number of classic songs. The Budokan album is it's certainly in the top 5 live albums of all time, and that had a huge impact when it came out. It exploded.
My only question about their drummer is playing with the white gloves. I don't know how you do that without losing your sticks.
But don't you admire the fact that he can play with a cigarette in his mouth and he's
Knocking that is it's as a drummer, it's weird to me.
and the
I
big
hate wearing
sticks.
gloves in general.
Yeah, I know it's a bit weird that. But
He's definitely
suits
right
the
about
image.
the longevity. I mean, they've
Yeah.
never really
Yeah.
stopped.
Yeah.
They-
They're just still making music to this day. They're still
they're-
making shows, and they've
Yeah.
never, really sold out their principles as a band.
They have not, and they've done some fantastic musical. I mean, they did that whole Sergeant Pepper thing live, and it was just phenomenal. They're huge Beatles heads, and they also cover at least 3 Slade songs, and that's one of my favorite bands of all time. So they've got to get extra bonus marks for covering Slade. And if you see them live now, they're still phenomenal. I mean, obviously they've slowed down a bit, and Rick Nielsen doesn't have 5 guitars on at once; he can only do 3. I just think they're so unique, and they've got a phenomenal body of work. I know that some people will probably just point back to the late 70s and say, well, Want You to Want Me, which is overplayed, Surrender or whatever, but I still think they're good enough to be at least A. I mean, if it was me, I'd put them S, but I think I would accept A because I appreciate they're not everyone's cup of tea.
All right. What about you,
So-
CJ? Where do you put him?
Definitely A.
Definitely.
If nothing else, just the sheer longevity, and they have had
Yeah.
a great cultural impact. And it may not be by name, but
Mhm.
you can definitely see their influence in a lot of bands.
What about
And-
you, Paul?
Sorry, go ahead.
I'm not a huge fan of them, but I do, I do recognize their, their
Born in
impact
Space?
and all that. But personally, I'd probably rank them at a B, but I could be swayed otherwise.
How much would it take? $20?
Sure, A tier. No.
The other thing is, Tom. I love Tom Peterson, the bass player. He's the only man I think I know of that plays a 12-string bass. So, which is a unique thing that he had invented for him.
I have
He
seen-
invented
I've
it.
seen an 11-string bass.
Yeah.
Bass player named Butch Ramsey used to come into Guitar Center with it, and it was
Yes.
like looking at an aircraft carrier.
It's incredible.
It's like, what?
That's awesome.
Jeez. 12 strings?
Uh,
God.
I just love their commitment. I mean, Cheap Trick have never sold out. The closest they came was when they did that stuff like Mighty Wings and whatever.
Well, in
To be-
2009, they did a song for Transformers: Revenge of the Fallen.
That's not selling out. That's
Yeah.
just your record company selling one of your records.
Yeah.
That's just,
Well, no, they did a song for the movie, the Fallen
Yeah.
remix.
yeah. Is that selling out? I don't know. They're in
Did you
they're
see
in
that movie?
they're in heavy metal, so that's the soundtrack
Yeah.
they're belonging. So, yeah, I just think they're wonderful guys who have got a ferocious live act, and I've seen them in clubs, I've seen them in stadiums, and they're always brilliant. But yeah, they're not. I mean, I get it. There's possibly in terms of song knowledge, people would know 3 songs and that's it.
Yeah.
So they're probably not S, but I certainly think they're A for me.
What about you, Zero? Where do you fall?
I'm a B on them. I think they're a great band. I just don't think that they have the catalog.
Okay, so we got 2 A's and 2 B's.
Ooh.
So it falls to me. And I don't need no arguments. They're definitely A.
Yes, I could deal with that.
So the $20 made its way to the right person.
So what's your Venmo again?
As Geddy Lee said, $10 is $10.
Def Leppard. How do you guys
Def
feel
Lep-
about the
Who
the
wrote?
one on drummer?
Yes, I want to know who wrote the agenda Google Doc because somebody wrote Death Leopard in
That-
the Google Doc.
That's because when I was writing it, I used voice to
Oh,
the spell,
Sure.
and so I said it, and I didn't notice it till later. I was all, oh, damn, that's okay.
I was gonna
Corrected
post
that.
it in Twitter. I was gonna meme it somehow.
Yeah,
This
no,
dude thought it was Death Leopard the whole time.
No, I like I said, I use voice to spell or whatever on my
That's
phone, and I just
crazy.
didn't even pay attention.
pretty certain there's a cover band called Death Leopard. So probably
Yes,
we're talking about.
yeah,
We're talking about the cover band. Yes, I
And
love
then the
that
parody
cover band.
band.
I saw a cover man called Zeppelin.
Yeah.
Once, so.
Yeah.
The band Dread Zeppelin is a great band, by the way. I love Dread Zeppelin. Great band.
Then you got Steel Panther.
Steel Panther.
Oh.
So funny.
So I saw Def Leppard back in like 1979. I think it was first time when they were a slightly more rougher band, rougher around the edges. They were new wave of British heavy metal. They still hadn't got that polished sound. They hadn't got the big producer yet and all that. I actually preferred them in that era. I think they got a little slick for me later. I know that's people love those hits. I find them a little slick later on. And I also think that if you go beyond sort of hysteria, you don't really get a lot of new stuff that's worth listening to, for me.
They had an album come out in 2000, 2001 that I liked.
That was their self-titled, wasn't it?
Yeah. But it didn't have any cultural significance. It was just, people who like Def Leppard, we're going to pick it up.
I like those guys. I mean, they all seem like great guys, and I always enjoy seeing them in interviews. And they certainly have a great love for many other acts that I love too. So the musical influences are good. So I have nothing against them. I feel that they're not. To me, they went a little bit slick, a little bit polished.
And a lot of that, I think, is also down to the fact that they had to change their sound because of Rick Allen's injury.
Well, there is that, yeah.
I mean,
You got to hand it to him. You have to hand it to him. Yeah.
Because he was having to play.
There's a pun.
I mean, such a different set. His was
Right.
all triggers and everything, so it was going to be a more produced sound.
I get that. Yeah.
To begin with, because of that situation, so that they had to course correct to fit their sound in with what he was going to have to do now.
So how do you guys feel about their significance, though? And I mean, I guess along with Iron Maiden are the two bands from the new wave of British heavy metal that have sustained a career. I mean, do you feel that significance is
You hear
is
them
big?
all the time. I mean,
Yeah.
we were making the jokes about stripper music. I mean, pour some sugar
Yeah,
on
pour
me.
some sugar.
Love Bites is played all the time. Hysteria, Animal.
They're the ones that gave us
Photograph.
Yeah, what you're saying is
all the time.
But what you're saying is you hear that stripper music every night. That's what you're saying, isn't it?
Someone's going to the strip clubs.
That's one thing I don't do.
They
Bullshit. Extra Zero's walking in like, pour some sugar. Busted.
He goes there for the all-you-can-eat ribs.
Somebody meme.
Wait, there's one with ribs? I don't know. Like,
That's
I
not
don't
the
know what
ribs
you
he's
got in
looking
California,
for.
man.
These
But
are not
really,
the ribs.
their cultural peak was from about 84 to about 92.
Yeah.
Yeah, I feel they're a bit of a nostalgia act now in some ways.
Well, they also
Yeah.
had the movie about Rick Allen. Or was it Behind the Music? But I just know everybody remembers, but Doc, I'm a drummer.
I
And,
give,
you know-
by the way, we have to give them maximum points for sticking by their buddy,
Yes.
which
Yeah.
I will applaud them to the end of my days for that.
Right, my drummer loses an arm. I'm drop kicking him into a river. These guys.
Maybe he'll improve. Maybe he'd do better.
You want to talk about a drummer getting booted? I mean, Pete Parada got booted for having Guillain-Barré syndrome from The Offspring.
Oh, yeah,
So
yeah.
but
I mean, Pete Best got booted because he was too better looking.
Yeah. Oh, I've met Pete Best as well. I've met Pete Best. Now you mention him. Yeah. So I don't know. I admit that I did prefer their earlier, less polished stuff to the later stuff, radio friendly stuff. I acknowledge they've sustained a long career, and a lot of young people know who they are. So that's
They did a
culturally.
really good cover of 90128 Overture, which was
Oh,
an
yeah.
option for Def Leppard to play.
Well, yeah, that was a bit of an unusual one, really. I mean, it's an unusual song to cover in the first place, of course, but although a couple of people have nicked the riff over the years.
Well, yeah.
Well, I say a dozen people have nicked that riff, but yeah, I don't dislike them. For me, that they're kind of hovering around the sort of B.
I was gonna say B.
Yeah, that's just me.
CJ, what about you? Where do you
Yeah, I put them at a B
put them a B?
because
Zero.
they've got a sustained catalog. They've got longevity,
Yeah.
and they had a cultural impact for a time, but it hasn't sustained itself past that, other than the one song.
Yeah.
The stripper song.
Strippers everywhere love, apparently.
And that's
Zero.
like Warrant. Warrant will only ever be known for Cherry Pie.
Yeah.
What about you? I mean, with all your stripper performances you've seen, how do you feel about them?
I rank them at an A personally. Again, I think that they have. I differ. I think that they do have the cultural relevance, but that's just me. I mean, these guys are still out performing. They're still doing,
Strip clubs.
I don't think they're playing those, but I know that
They should be. What
They're
the-
still doing stadiums. They're still doing big venues. I think they're still relevant. I love their music. I'm going to say A, but I know I'm in the minority on this one.
Okay, yeah, we got
Can
mostly
we have a
B.
B plus? No, sorry.
Everyone always asks that. They're all like, "Can we get more, things?" I'm all like, "Man, I can't fit them on my screen."
I
more categories, damn it.
I look at it as none of the bands on this list are bad at all. We're ranking
Yeah,
them
no.
amongst themselves.
Yeah,
So,
They're all legends.
yeah.
Like,
Okay.
like this next band, I feel like the Big Lebowski on this band. I've had a rough day, and I hate the fucking Eagles, man.
Yeah.
I
Oh,
recognize they
I
got
know
great
people that
songs.
hate them. There are people who hate
I-
them.
I like a few of their songs. I think Don Henley is a douche.
Mm.
Glenn Fry was a douche. Joe Walsh was just high most of the time.
Well, I'm from California, and this is the rock band that all Mexican dudes play. So I've heard them my entire life. Every time, as a kid, I'd be like, "Let's put on some rock," and all the Spanish dudes would be like, "Yeah, here," and put on the Eagles. So
Hotel
love-
California.
yeah, I
Yeah.
love Already Gone. That's my favorite. But I've heard them so much.
So I'm a schizophrenic when it comes to the Eagles because again I've seen them live a few times and there's a lot of their music I love, but I think their importance in the sphere of everyone goes, oh yeah, Eagles invented country rock. Well, that's bollocks for a start.
Yep.
And their best member for me was Bernie Leadon. In fact, my favorite Eagles songs are all Bernie Leadon songs, and he left after one of these nights or something. And the Flying Burrito Brothers invented, if anybody, probably invented. Graham Parsons invented country rock.
Yeah.
The Eagles just kind of nicked a few members from bands like that. On the other hand, who doesn't like Eagles songs? Well, I mean, a lot of them. There's a lot of great ones.
CJP.
Well,
Their
apart from
Greatest Hits album was, I think, still is the highest selling album of all time.
Yeah. So I admire
At least in
them.
the 20th century.
Yeah, I think the Glenn Fry and Don Henley showed a ruthless devotion to popular songwriting, which stood them in good stead, and certainly used their time with people like Bob Seger's band to learn a lot how to do that. But I think they took Randy Meisner from Poco, another country rock band that came before them. The Bernie Leadon had been in the Flying Burrito Brothers, and they quickly got sidelined by Ryan Henley because they didn't want a rival in the songwriting front. On the other hand, I kind of like them. I've got all the records. So what does that say about me? I'm a schizophrenic. They've got some gorgeous songs. Somebody mentioned Already Gone. That's a fantastic song. And I love Journey of the Sorcerer and stuff like that. Just the weirder stuff. But their cultural significance is enormous.
Oh yeah,
Yeah,
you can't.
a very big library of songs.
If I was to look at it dispassionately, I'd say there's no way you couldn't say the Eagles were not one of the most important bands of the latter half of the 20th century, So,
Yeah.
albeit that they're basically a nostalgia band since they reformed in the late 90s. Yeah, I mean, there's a little bit of new material that nobody probably gives a shit about. So yeah, their period was up to what was that album? Those shoes and tracks like that, and Heartbreak Tonight, and whatever that album was, The Last Resort or whatever it was called. I can't remember.
I can't remember.
So there's kind of a burst of stuff, and then obviously Hotel California. Who doesn't know?
Yeah.
You know, I
that
will say though,
cover?
I think the Gypsy Kings did that song better.
Yeah.
Or then again, that was also in the Big Lebowski. So anytime I hear that version of it, all I can think of is John Turturro licking his bowling ball.
So as a lover of country rock and Americana, I think their importance in that would be way overblown as a pop band. They're hugely important.
Okay, so
And
who
Joe
wants
Walsh,
to be
I always loved Joe Walsh on his own and with the James Gang and Joe Walsh and Barnstorm. I'm not, yeah. So I like Joe. I probably like Joe more than the Eagles, to be honest.
So who wants to be the first to shoot the shot here? Where should they be?
That's hard. I mean, they're definitely A tier.
Yeah,
Cultural impact alone.
yeah, it's
I
hard to
can't-
deny
I just-
that.
I can't put them in S tier though. I just can't.
Okay, so we got a 1A. 70s, how do you feel?
I think it's yeah, I agree. It's hard to have them in anything less than A, purely because of the hits and the cultural significance. And let's face it, I and many millions of others have had some wonderful experiences at their concerts. I'm not going to deny that. I thoroughly enjoy them. I just always have this feeling that there's a little bit of other stuff that they've pulled in from other people, and kind of that was the basis of it. I'd put them in A. I don't think I'd put them in S.
Okay, and since Paul's Mexican, it's obviously an S tier for him.
I'm not Mexican.
Eagles,
No.
we don't need no stinking Eagles.
Well, how do you feel,
It's-
Paul?
It's so funny that you say I'm Mexican because a lot of people do think I'm Mexican, but I'm actually Polish. Like, you're Polish? You look not You do not look Polish. What's his face just did his True Pop 7th showed his face, and I'm like, oh yeah, you look like a Polak for sure. But
I think
me,
it looks more like DJ Qualls.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's true.
I did those memes of him with the girl in the bed and stuff on his thing. I said, show him. He's all, I don't want to show him. Put him in bed with Lizzo.
that's funny. But Eagles, I mean, personally, other than like the couple of hits, like I personally haven't, listened to them much. I do acknowledge that their impact and all that. A or B for me, just based off of I'm taking myself personal out of it because like I said, just out of pure ignorance or just preference or whatever. I never really got too into the Eagles, but definitely, yeah, A or B.
What about you, Zero? How do you feel about Eagles?
I'm a B. I've never been a big fan of their music. I understand the significance and the relevance, and I do think that they are still very relevant today. But I just, I've never been a big fan of the sound of the band or their songs. It's like if it's on the radio, I'll just like, okay. My father-in-law will listen to, has listened to them from time to time. I'm just like, not for me. And I don't know what it is. I guess part of it too is like when I was in school, I had a couple music teachers that would play Hotel California and try and like show us the brilliance of it, and I just it never clicked or popped, and it almost kind of annoyed me.
A little overrated,
There are better bands in the same genre area.
Yeah.
Yes.
There always were, and there always will be. And
The only thing I liked about them was that they did a lot. What the Beatles did was they didn't have one set lead singer. You had mainly Fry and Henley doing it, but you also still had Meisner and some other people coming in and doing vocals.
And
actually, that's a good point because vocally they are phenomenal. I'll give them that.
If you've ever,
Vocally phenomenal.
there's a documentary they did, and they're showing them backstage warming up with stuff
yeah,
and you're just
I've
like,
seen that.
holy crap, this is some of the best harmonies I've ever heard. And they're just they're warming up. That's all they're doing.
Yeah, and I think that makes them an A, I think, definitely. I don't think they're a B. I think they've got to be an A. There's musicality there. And I'd make them an A just because the theme for Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy is an Eagles song, Journey of the Sorcerer. So
I love that
No,
movie.
that alone gets them an A for me.
No one wants to take it to the limit, huh?
No,
Uh,
it's already gone. So and you'd be a desperado if you
And you
did.
do have to wonder how many kids, my age, were conceived to those songs.
Yeah.
There's a definite cultural impact there. I wouldn't exist without them.
Hilarious.
All right, I think I heard 2 A's, 1 B, and Paul was on the
Paul was
fence. So
I'm
I
on the
guess
fence.
it's to the A's. In that
Based off that harmony story, based off their musicianship skills, I could give them an A. As a music, because like I said, I'm taking myself personally out of it, and I'm a big believer in skill, like talent and skill. That is to me above everything. It sounds like they got that.
Yeah, and the songwriting chops. I mean, I don't deny that those guys can write songs.
Yeah, that's the
And
other thing is bands that write their own songs. Like there's one person on this list that I think was mostly just kind of a pretty face, Tom Petty, who the studio mostly wrote like the songs. If I'm correct, I don't know.
Interesting.
But like to me, I might be wrong about that. But like to me, like how well you write music is also a very important.
Yeah,
My-
and
my-
you don't have to like it to acknowledge the skill. Is the point
Exactly.
I think of this
My-
ranking? Yeah.
My opinion of Paul is free falling.
Uh,
I'm gonna do the puns all the time, so you guys just got used to. Okay, Electrolyte Orchestra. Electric.
That's
so
a
like
hard
the
one.
Electrolyte Orchestra. Are they something you
Yes.
get in a sort of an energy drink?
Electric. I don't know
one
why
thing,
my head
though-
always go electro.
Is the cultural impact really from that band was more Jeff Lynne. Because if you listen to anything that he's produced, you can tell it's him producing it. Like the Traveling Wilburys, a lot of Olivia Newton-John stuff that he produced.
God, he worked with McCartney. He produced McCartney stuff, and you can tell a Jeff Lynne
Production, yeah.
Very easy.
So for me, the cultural impact of that group was really more him. And not necessarily the band, but him as a producer afterwards.
Yeah, I mean, it's fair to say that it became apparent at a certain point that Jeff Lynne was a yellow. I mean, it maybe didn't quite start that way, maybe, but he was always the main writer, especially after Roy Wood left after the first album.
And he actually, was it like 6 years ago or so, he actually re-recorded
I know
all of their big hits.
didn't
and
sound
it
much
just-
different to me.
It didn't, because it's him producing it.
Yeah. So, again, I got to take my personal bias out of this because I absolutely adore the Electric Light Orchestra and always have. And I saw them again back in the day, and I've seen them in the reunion stuff. I think Jeff's a masterful songwriter and producer, and I particularly love A New World Record and Out of the Blue. I think are outstanding all-time great albums. But the but would be, well, can anyone name anybody else in the band other than Jeff Lynne?
Yeah.
Or could they name anything other than the hits? Would the people that are even going to see Yellow now, they may well know all the hit singles, but would they even be able to say, well, I know the name of an album?
People are either going to know Mr. Blue Sky or Don't Bring
And-
It Down. That's it.
Yeah.
I have to knock them for Xanadu.
I like Can't Get You Out of My Head.
I have to.
That's probably my favorite. Can't Get You Out.
Oh,
of
I
My
love
Head.
the old stuff like that too. Yeah, I mean, this is why I love them as a band. Don't get me wrong, I absolutely adore them. But I'm trying to think outside of that and think, well,
Yeah.
those things certainly put them up to a certain point. But what would push them above that? That's
Yeah.
But again,
CJ.
Xanadu.
Well, I think is I quite like the track Magic, the Olivia Newton track Magic.
Oh, the song. I think that song and her voice is what popped my first boner.
That's right.
Yeah.
I'm
If only
sorry,
it was
John.
her that it
Singing
was.
in that is just so sultry and sexy.
So she personally did it. You're saying?
Yes.
So ELO, brilliant, beautiful music. I mean, I've got all their albums, even the later not quite so good ones. And I think that those songs are enduring, and the songwriting and the production would probably put them for me in the sort of, B plus A range. I think that culturally, whilst you hear their stuff popping up here and there, it's usually only one or two tracks, like Mr. Blue Sky.
Yeah.
And I think it's fair to say a lot of people wouldn't even know who Jeff Lynne was.
Yeah. Yeah. Although I will say this though, Mr. Blue Sky, that song has a kind of special place for me because, especially during COVID when my daughters are really having a tough time, anytime I put that song on, they just immediately pop up. There's something about that song that you cannot be angry or sad at.
Yeah, it's very up tempo, upbeat, life affirming.
I do like that. It's positive. Yeah, most stuff is kind of a downer, but that one's a positive. If I could put this another way, if you talked about Jeff Lynne, if Jeff Lynne was on this list, not ELO, I would put him in S.
Oh yes,
straight away.
Easy.
Paul, how do you feel about your favorite band?
I'm not gonna lie. I'm like, who the hell is Electric Light Orchestra? I've never heard that name before. I know the music. When I popped it on, I'm like, oh, okay, I know all this music for sure. I've never heard that name before. I do not know how that got by me. Living in a Polish household, things get by you. It happens. It will happen. But no, the music is great. I do recognize like a lot of like the top songs on the Spotify list and all that, and
I'd like
A or B for me.
Yeah, I'd like to give them credit as well. We forget about this in the 70s for having such an incredible stage show with the spaceship and the lasers and all that. Some of that stuff was pretty revolutionary at the time, and it is an aspect of rock, that craftsmanship on stage of a rock show. They knew how to put on a show.
Yeah.
So I think
that's few and far between today.
Yeah.
It's like Muse is the only band, like them or hate them, they're the only band that I know that does anything like that today.
Good point. Yeah, good point. So I think for me, they're definitely an A. I think if they just had a little bit more longevity in the hits are all concentrated in a certain period.
Yeah,
and I think if they just had a slightly longer career and they hadn't then. They basically went way off the boil after Discovery. So,
the Malware has a fondness of Fire on High.
Yeah.
Their cultural impact can't be denied.
Yeah.
Hey,
I'd say
Jonathan.
A. I'd be A.
Okay, so we got 2 A's. CJ, how do you feel about them? Where do you put them?
They're riding right between a B and an A for me. But if nothing else, it gave us Jeff Lynne and all the stuff he's produced that I just adore. I gotta give him an A tier because his songwriting is phenomenal.
Yeah,
and the musicianship, and even then, the whole point of the Electric Light Orchestra was actually to bring in orchestral instruments into a rock idiom. That was the whole point, and just that uniqueness alone set them apart.
Yeah, I saw one of their videos. Yeah, he's in like a garage. It might be can't get out of my head. And yeah, he has cellos and everything in there. Okay, how about you, Zero? Where do you feel?
I mean, it's a B for me personally. They do have some really big hits, but I mean, the fact of the matter is that if you say ELO to most people, and they're not even gonna know, I mean,
you could say the full name of the band to me, and I would be like, huh?
I mean, yeah, you could say Electric Light Orchestra. So it's like for me, it's like it's even tough for me putting them in a B because. And I understand you guys like the parts greater than the sum and you want to rank it higher.
Right.
But it's like I can if you say Bad Company to somebody, they're more likely to know ELO than they're more likely to know Bad Company than ELO. And then Journey, Boston, and Def Leppard, again, way more recognizable, way more relevant.
But I would argue if you put on an Electric Light song versus a Bad Company song, what do you think they would rank better?
That's
an average person.
I'm going to stick at a B for this personally.
The other thing I'd just like to mention is that from a North American perspective, I think ELO would be of more name recognition outside of the US than some of those bands.
That's true.
Globally, particularly in markets like Europe and South America. So that I know that's not a ranking thing
And I
necessarily.
got to down
but-
rank him for Xanadu. That's I really got to down rank him for Xanadu.
Yeah.
I think I heard mostly A's. Is where
I think purely for the quality of the songwriting and the music and the beautiful tunes,
Yeah,
and the fact that there was a unique marrying of classical and
yeah.
rock.
That's-
But yeah,
that's
fair enough.
Foreigner. How do you guys feel
Oh,
about Foreigner?
That first album is killer.
Head games, right?
Yeah.
Killer. There's so many good tracks on that first album. But they they had some big hits after that, but then again, they had that big hit in the 80s, and then they told Lou Gramm to F off, and then they just disappeared.
Yeah, I'm going to be a bit. I've got to separate my bias because it is one of my favorite bands of all time. I even did a live stream on them a couple of weeks ago. I adore that first album. I agree, it's a brilliant album. The ones after that, okay, and then 4 is a phenomenal album. So I think that stuff's great, and I think I've seen them live again. Saw them live a few times. I think that there's just not enough necessarily there overall to make them up amongst the greats.
Although
if you
I
wanna put it that
will
way.
counter that with one thing:
Yeah.
the Foreigner belt.
Yeah, from Aqua
Okay.
Teen. Who freaking
That
said
was
this
one
to
of the
Head Games?
greatest
Yeah.
episodes of that show. Was the Foreigner belt?
Yeah,
You know,
Get ready when
everyone.
you're gonna be cold as ice.
that's right.
Well, who said
Everyone-
that on Head Games?
Everyone that I've ever talked to about him, they love. I want to know what love is. I hate that
That's
song.
my least
I-
favorite
what?
song.
Yeah,
I
I
love
That
hate
song
it.
is dope.
But I
Seriously.
have like a reason why that song got elevated for me, and it's the game Grand Theft Auto Vice City.
Oh,
And that was
yeah.
part of like one of the radio stations, and I thought it was like so funny. Like again, this was like before memes were really. I mean, the original memes were like Grimace ate my balls, Mr. T ate my balls. But I was just like, man, this would be so funny to show people me running people over to this song.
I want to know what love is.
It's a song that absolutely annoys me now, and I love Foreigner, which
The music
is-
video is
yeah.
so cringe.
Yeah, I much prefer everything. Well, there's even better tracks on that album than that song, which is ironic. But yeah, I get why it's popular because it's got that emotional hook and the band, the flighters in the air, whatever. Overdone, I think. But I think if they had a longer, more sustained career, because as you say, they fell apart when they all fell out and Lou Gramm got the boot and whatever, and then he was ill, poor bugger. I know someone who knows him really well. I'm still trying to tempt Lou Gramm to come on my show. So I'm trying to tempt him to come on. I adore them individually. I've seen them a dozen times, but I think that in terms of ranking them, they've got some really strong stuff, but maybe not enough of it. But for me, so
Well, and the first album also really has a special place in my heart, because my first car when I was in high school was my granddad's Oldsmobile, 78
Yeah.
model, and it had an 8-track player in it.
yeah.
And he had a box of 8 tracks,
Mhm.
and it was mostly like a weird collection of marching band and some show tunes, and there was one really weird beatnik album that had no label on it, so I had no clue who it was. But
You
they
mean
had
an-
Foreigner's first album.
An 8-track like this, you mean?
Yes,
Oh,
yes,
wow.
exactly like that. I had Foreigner's first album, and I literally played that until it broke, because it was
I
the
got another
only
one.
thing I really had to listen to other than the radio.
Band on the Run on 8-track.
Nice.
Well, it's like I can't remember what movie said it that 8-track back when they were making 8-tracks, you had to make the whole album good because you had to listen to the whole album.
Right.
Yeah. He had like 4 chunks to be able to switch between. So you had like
I'm
4
glad-
songs, 4 songs.
I'm glad you shared that story because then I'm not the only one here who knows what an 8-track looks like.
I was so glad when my car got hit by this little old lady that killed her Grand Marquis, because then I was able to put a cassette player in there and then
Yeah.
had the adapter for a CD player, and the ride was so smooth I didn't have anti-skip.
But the other thing about 8-tracks was when it reached the end of the track, there would be a huge pause as it went to the next one. So the song would be halfway through, and you'd have to sit there and wait.
Yep.
And then it'd
They were
start again.
loud. Changing tracks was like kerchunk.
Yeah, but then again, they
Alright.
did go round forever if you left them. So if you forgot, you didn't have to change it like a cassette or something.
So
Paul?
for me, they're definitely a B tier. I mean, they had
B's
great
fair.
hits. They didn't have the longevity, but again, culturally, Aqua Teen Hunger Force kind of give them a boost. You mentioned the Foreigner Belt. You know, most people, other than like
That's
Dermy
great.
because he's young and stupid, would know who that is.
It is a great reference. Yeah, I think B is a fair place to put them. Great, but there's something that we have to rank. That's what the whole thing is, and they're
Yeah.
not. They're never going to be up amongst the gods.
What about you, Zero? How do you feel about them?
I'm gonna give it B. I mean, I love their catalog. I think they hold up, but yeah, it's the longevity is a major factor in why I think they fit in that B tier.
Yeah. Okay. B they are. Next.
Yeah, we've only got
I want
another
to know
30.
what B is.
We've only got another 30 to go.
Yeah, yeah.
4 hours later.
Yeah. Kansas. Now, Dust in the Wind, freaking My Wayward Son. I love their music. So, but how do you guys feel about them?
Again,
First of all,
those are really the only two songs anyone knows.
Yeah,
Yeah, I
Dustin's
was
a
about to say.
Who is this guy, Dustin? Anyway,
I mean, great musicianship. I mean, again, they were kind of riding that prog line a bit,
Yep.
especially in the early first few albums. And they're great musicians, but really their cultural impact just isn't there
Yeah.
yeah.
because
No,
they only had the two songs that people know that got airplay.
Yeah, you've nailed it there. I mean, that's for lovers of the band. I'm sure their albums are fantastic,
Oh, yeah.
and they're, as you say, they're prog. They're actually a prog band.
Yeah.
To me, they're in the
That's
prog
dope.
rock
It's a
category.
phenomenal record.
Yeah,
It
and
really is.
musicianship off the wall.
Point of
Uh,
No Return's great.
Yeah.
But
But in terms of impact, they're not that huge in
No.
that respect. So it's hard for me to comment because it's one of the bands I've never seen live on this list, which is weird. And I've always thought they were okay, but yeah, I mean, if I want that kind of prog, I'll go listen to Yes or Rush.
Yeah, I was gonna
Sorry,
say.
Kansas fans.
Static 2020 said in the chat. It started. Or Carry On My Wayward Son was like the started every season of Supernatural. So that's like really the only thing currently culturally that they. Well, I mean, Supernatural's actually been off the air for a while, so like
Well, Dust in the
it's been-
Wind. Anytime that you want to
Dude,
do a
I thought-
schlocky.
I thought Dust in the Wind was Simon and Garfunkel.
Mm.
It sounds like a.
Shame on you.
Sorry.
he's not wrong though. It does have that vibe.
Right. So a lot of these bands, as I was like, because I was going through all of these before, like throughout the week, and I'm like, wait, Kansas did Dust in the Wind? I kept going in Google saying it's Dust in the Wind, and it's like Kansas, and I'm like, I type in like trying to type in Simon and Garfunkel to see if it'll come up, and it's like, no, it's still Kansas. I'm like, really?
If it makes you
is
feel
it-
any better.
I'm sure there's another. Who else does a song called Dust in the Wind? I'm sure there is another one.
I
Is
know
it
somebody did a
Poison or
cover of
somebody?
it.
Candle in the Wind by Elton
Candle
John.
in the Wind, yeah.
What were you gonna say, Zero?
But if it makes you feel any better, when I was much younger, I thought that Wheel in the Sky was a Kansas song. It's actually Journey.
Journey.
Yeah. See, it's so like some of
Yeah.
these. What tier are we at?
And that alone is a
what?
strike against both bands, then, because if you can't immediately say that's that band, that's a strike
I mean,
against them.
For me, they're about a C tier.
I'm
See.
with that.
Off those two songs alone, they're not D.
Yeah,
What?
yeah.
I mean, they're still making music.
Oh yeah,
They're still touring. I mean, it's not the original band anymore, but
Okay.
They're
yeah.
still
I mean,
there.
no one would deny the musicianship. I just think that if we're talking about overall impact in a number of areas, they're definitely not a prominent band in most respects.
Yeah.
Or even that influential, perhaps.
So we got two C's. Where are you
I
guys?
see. I'll give
C.
it a C.
What about you, Paul?
C sounds pretty good, you know. Yeah, like I said, there's only really a couple hits, and that's about it.
All right. Next up, Kiss This.
Kiss S tier.
Oh,
They really aren't that good of musicians, but
Yeah,
their shows are amazing.
Yeah.
they were the first
And-
concert I ever went to.
And longevity. I mean, they're still
Yeah.
around today. Even
Well, I mean,
though-
they've had what, like 6 farewell tours now.
Maybe more.
Farewell till next
Yeah.
year.
They're like Ric Flair. I mean, you know,
Yeah.
the only way you're going to get Paul Stanley and Gene Simmons off the stage is if they die on stage.
Yeah. As long as they'll keep making money. They'll keep playing
And-
shows.
And you have to admire the fact that they were the kings of merchandising.
Oh
Yeah.
yeah.
They
for
knew
sure.
how to
Simmons?
sell themselves.
Yeah. Kiss condoms. There's Kiss everything.
What's a Kiss
even a-
Kiss
There's,
coffin?
there's been video games. I mean, they had the Psycho Circus.
Movies.
Aren't there cons like Kiss Con?
Yeah, well,
Is
Kiss
that a thing?
Con is a huge
I mean,
thing.
the Kiss
Yeah.
Army. There was a whole movie about kids going to see a Kiss concert.
Yeah, that movie.
Detroit
What was
Rock
it?
City.
Detroit Rock City.
I love
I
that
love
movie.
that movie.
I just lost my virginity in a confessional booth. Lord have mercy.
perhaps I'll be the contrarian here.
No, I mean
Also-
honestly, I think their music is cheesy. I think it's all that. Honestly,
Yeah.
I can't even deny that it's like how huge they
Yeah.
are. It's got to be
I-
S or A.
It's
I don't
undeniable.
own a single Kiss album.
Yeah.
At all. Bizarrely enough, I saw them live in 1980 and loved it.
Yeah.
Their shows
I-
are phenomenal.
I loved it, even though I only really knew like 3 songs. At that
That's-
point. There were nothing in Britain. I thought that's one of the greatest shows I've ever seen in my life.
Yeah, they're showmen.
Yeah.
They're
So-
showmen. They're definitely showmen.
I still didn't rush out and buy the records. Maybe Kiss Alive is the one I got digitally. That's it. I do have the 7-inch single of Radioactive by Gene Simmons with the mask, though, which is good. So I think that as musicians and as a band, I think they're pretty poor. That's God may God forgive me, and Kiss fans forgive me for saying it. I think they're very poor, or they're average. They maybe
For
have some
sure.
experience because they've been playing for so long. I think that in terms of songs, they've maybe only got half a dozen songs that everybody could name, but I think culturally, their enormous influence is enormous. There's no one doesn't know who Kiss are
Yeah.
and what their act is all about, and the visuals and the stage shows, and then they're in tons of movies, tons of comics, cartoons, referenced
Yeah.
by other bands. They're good in some ways. Actually, they've been great to other bands by taking them out as support acts, and they've been encouraging of a lot of other bands. So I'll give them points for that. But I think musically, I think they're pretty poor. But culturally, there's very few bands in this list have had that reach.
Yeah.
Gene Simmons, his autobiography's called Kiss and Makeup. I love that.
I mean, the fact that
and-
they survived losing the makeup.
Yeah.
I mean, when most
Survive
bands do that
changing
with-
genres.
Yeah, I mean that
Yeah.
losing that identity and still being able to carry on and then bring it back.
I do think it was great that after all that disco sucks thing, that they stuck it to their fans by doing a disco record. But
Yeah.
that,
So
that
funny.
shows
And
balls.
that's-
That shows huge balls.
And go on Spotify. That is the most played
I
song
know.
by hundreds of millions of plays.
Huge balls to do that. But
Did they let's put the S in Sex was that when they had the makeup off?
Yes.
Was that during their
That
nomination
was
time?
the-
yeah,
that was
I
their-
love the
their
song.
only-
lick it
real-
up, lick it up.
That was
and
their
all
only
that.
real hit at that time.
Yeah, let's put the X in sex.
Didn't they
Love
lick
is a
it up?
muscle and you make me wanna flex.
Lick it up was that era as well. I think lick it up. which
Yeah,
was a
Lick
hit.
It Up was also yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, what was that movie with Sean? What's this? Stifler. I think it was
American
Role
Pie?
Models,
Oh, role models. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
where he
the
has that
movie.
Kiss. He has the Kiss pinball machine and he plays Kiss. He's like Love Gun. He's talking about his dick.
I remember a very amusing clip with Gene Simmons and Tony Iommi went to a high school to talk to kids about being in a rock band, and everybody wanted to talk to Tony Iommi. Nobody wanted to talk to Gene Simmons. So I rest my case.
I mean, I can't put them S tier because their musicianship is just so average, but you have to put them in A tier simply
Oh,
because
the influence, the influence.
their influence is
The
undeniable.
reach. Yeah.
S tier
Zero.
for Gene Simmons' tongue alone.
Indeed.
No, I'm joking. A tier sounds good.
Yeah.
Zero, where are you?
I'm going to be the contrarian here. Like, again, they were the first concert. They put on a hell of a show.
Mm.
First concert I ever went to. They put on a hell of a show. I do like probably about 10 or so of the songs, like legitimately like them, like Strutter, Beth, God of Thunder, Shout It Out Loud.
I was made for loving you.
That one's all right. Detroit Rock City. Detroit Rock City is an awesome one. You know, so, but again, it's the music aspect. It's like, yes, they've marketed themselves really well and they put on a hell of a stage show. But that's like going and being like, you know, who has great music is Cirque du Soleil.
Exactly.
You know?
People
Yeah,
love
like
Celine.
Soleil too.
People love Celine Dion. I wouldn't put her on this list anywhere, but it's
You mean
there's one
Celine
liking cultural impact and liking something is two different
two
things.
different
I guess.
things, yeah.
Well,
I don't. I would never put them in S, and I
Yeah.
would be probably offended to have certain other bands on here below them. So I don't know. But culturally, I admit that of all the names on here, a lot of people would know Kiss before some of the others.
right,
Oh, that's very true.
100%. That's true.
But the musicality for me pulls them down. I wouldn't put them higher than A. I mean, if it was me, I'd probably
Right.
have them in C. But I admit their cultural impact puts them above that.
Yeah, I was leaning towards C just because of the fact that their music is just what it is. I mean, when you have do they have a single album that has like hits front to back? I mean, and that's where it's funny. Is like Def Leppard and Foreigner have albums that I can listen start to end. You know, no skips. I can't tell you a single Kiss album that I'd listen to without skipping some songs.
I like your thinking.
Yeah.
Be
I'll
it
knock it
best,
down.
then. Be it
Okay,
best.
So we got 1B, 1C, and you guys are still A, CJ, and
I'll knock it down to B or C
You know,
because
That's a
they made
very
some good
personal
points.
argument. Especially for
Okay.
me being a musician. They're not great.
Maybe
So
C's
B.
good enough then. I mean, are they really better than Bad Company as musicians? I don't know.
Right, I do want to take it down to C. I mean, the showmanship and the marketing's great.
Right.
The relevance
B.
is there. If
That's
if we were
good, but it
doing
shouldn't give-
relevance,
You're
S
right.
tier, But
Musicality should still just top that, I think, and reach of
So-
that music.
Especially in
So
the
are we
70s.
B?
Because the 70s was the musicians period.
right,
Right. There's way better people than. You're right. I can imagine being Journey or being Boston, and then Kiss is blowing up, and you're like, dude, here we are, like expert musicians trying to hone our craft, and these guys are just, just doing basic stuff. So I
well,
get it. I get
put
it.
on makeup.
do people
Put on
go,
makeup exactly.
Well, here's one more question: do people go to Kiss concerts for the music?
No, they don't.
No.
No.
I rest my case.
I
For the
didn't.
makeup,
I
it's-
went for the show. I didn't.
Yeah.
I mean, I went just to see the show.
So where were we?
But-
Because now I'm all confused.
Yeah. I know. We went from.
I'm talking myself into putting
Yeah,
them
me
further
too.
down.
Me too.
You guys,
Because all they've got for me, all they've got is cultural impact. For me,
The only thing
That's
I'm
just
sure
me.
of is they're not S. That's so far. That's all I know. Okay.
Do you
so
think
we're-
people will come after us if we put them in C?
No,
Yeah,
I could put him at C.
Yeah.
Put 'em in
I
C.
could put him
Kiss
down.
Army might come at you.
You know what? They
No.
kiss
Like,
my
look,
ass, Army.
If they did, I'd say I'd put them in an S for their showmanship and for their marketing and their reach. I'll give modern day Gene Simmons a D or the Void for his attitude. But
Yeah.
you know, musically, I think there are some of their parts, and I don't think a great stage show can salvage
Save them from average music. Yeah,
Exactly.
C.
Okay, so
Because
it's
Bad
like
Company
polishing a turd.
better bands than Kiss.
C.
so C.
Yeah, C is good. C is good.
I can't believe you guys let Zero influence you.
No,
hey.
you seem like that's the whole
You
point of
give
this.
him too much power.
Dermy's probably like somewhere like good.
No, Jeremy's a big Kiss fan. He's screaming right now.
Yeah.
No, I'm kidding.
I have a very personal beef with Meatloaf. And I want to
Unintended.
Pun.
Pun intended.
Throw
Because
it in the oven.
of I would do anything for love, but I won't do that.
I
Almost
remember
7
this.
minutes long, and in 7 minutes, he never once says what he won't do.
That's
So
right.
Meatloaf can
Blue
kiss
balls.
my ass. Well, in an interview, he finally said it's butt stuff. What he won't do butt stuff
On him or on her?
either. It's like I don't want anything to do with the butt.
Dermy's all like, put him in the void.
Taco.
That Bound Out of Hell's a great album. Come on, Bound Out of Hell
It's
2
all right,
pretty
but
bad.
He was more. He was again. He's like Kiss. He's more show than music.
Yeah, and I think he's
He
more
was a very
prolific
good
as an
showman. He was a
actor,
very good showman.
or
Yeah.
was. Rest in peace. He's a good act. He was a good actor, but
So, Bat Out of Hell it was like the biggest thing since the last biggest thing. But it's largely, and I think Meatloaf as a guy is a great guy, or was a great guy. But that album is the product of Jim Steinman's writing and Todd Rundgren's
yeah.
production and
absolutely.
guitar playing.
Yeah.
Meatloaf plays his part brilliantly on it as an actor, but I really think that album is certainly, at the very least, it's a tripartite thing with 3 people contributing. And I think it's obviously he suffered mightily following that because the material and the production dropped off in later albums because those guys weren't necessarily there. They were for some of it. But, so it's kind of like Bat Out of Hell's huge. There's a lot of diminishing returns, and I'm sure he seemed like a nice guy, but has he really got a huge influence beyond that album? No.
Isn't
I-
he
the only
on the back of the
cultural-
album?
So the only cultural significance I remember from it is Top Gear. For several episodes, they were doing a ranking of the best driving songs, and they had Meatloaf "Bat Out of Hell" on there, obviously. And every single time they mentioned Meatloaf on the ranking, they're like trashing him, and they're saying anyone who votes for him is trash, in a joking manner.
So
Yeah,
real quick. I just want to
sorry.
let Wookie be bad know. Steve Miller Band was
60s.
1966.
60s, yeah.
Yeah.
Hell, he
And
played for Boss Skaggs. Boss Skaggs was in his band in the 60s. So, if you were ranking albums from the 70s, Bat Out of Hell would obviously play a large part in that. But if we're ranking artists, Meatloaf's a kind of a footnote other than that.
I'm
His-
gonna say D from me.
The writer who did Bat Out of Hell, he also did a lot of Bonnie Tyler songs, didn't he?
Yes.
Because
yeah.
I think they did some crossover, her and Meatloaf, and you can
They
hear in
did.
her music, it sounds a lot like his style of writing.
She did
I Want to Need a
some
Hero and stuff.
Total Eclipse of the Heart.
Yeah,
Wasn't that
Total
Bonnie
Eclipse of the
Tyler?
Heart. Yeah.
Have you ever actually watched that video?
Yes.
That video is creepy.
Yes, it
She's a
is.
sexual predator in that video. Straight up, she's a sexual predator.
Yeah, if we were ranking Meatloaf as a human being and as an actor, I'd have him reasonably high. But I think as a musical act, it's got to be pretty low.
I'm
A
saying
D. Yeah. Could be a
I
D.
know I'm going to get shit for it, but what the hell?
D sounds good to me. I'm not a huge Meatloaf fan. Sounds more like a rock opera, bluesy rock opera kind of. I don't know some of his stuff. It's
That's not to say some of it wasn't good, but it doesn't
good,
have
right.
it just doesn't have the impact of these other acts.
yeah. D
Other
sounds
than
good.
Bat Out of Hell, which is a one album.
There you
One
go, CJP.
Yep. She ain't wrong. Oh, there's a. If you ever get a chance on YouTube, there's look up "Total Eclipse of the Heart" literal version,
album.
and they changed the lyrics to match exactly what's happening on screen.
Oh,
And
jeez,
points
I gotta
out
check that
quite a
out.
bit that she is very much perving on these young boys at Hogwarts.
Just what you would expect from a Welsh. She's Welsh. What do you expect? You know?
All right, so I heard some D's, right? Is
Yeah, I was a D.
everyone
Yeah.
your D? Everyone's
Yeah.
a D.
Again, I
Let's
can't
move
get
on.
7 minutes of I won't do anything for love, but I won't do that back.
No love for the loaf.
Nope.
Ozzy Osbourne.
Can we just leave him in the void? Because I think that's where he
Oh,
belongs.
yeah.
The void.
Sharon!
It's
in the void.
How
Hey,
could
there's
you
a
do that to
connection.
me? How could you do that to me?
Connection to ELO, because Sharon Osbourne's dad, Don Arden, was ELO's manager. But,
Although we'll say,
throw that out
Ozzy
there.
Osbourne actually had Rick Wakeman on an album.
Yeah.
And you
Which
got to
is-
give him credit for his influence. I mean, he
Oh,
had Ozfest for all those years that brought a lot of
Yeah.
bands up. I mean,
Not sure he even
he's
knew
culturally
what he was,
people know who he is. People know who Ozzy is.
but,
I mean,
it's a tough
his-
one.
Very iconic voice. There's no way you're going to hear a
Yeah.
It's
song,
tough.
be it his solo career or Black Sabbath, that you're going to be like, I don't know who that is. He's one of the most iconic voices in
Yeah.
rock. I mean, listen to War Pigs, listen to No More Tears.
Yes, No More Tears. Oh God, I love
Yeah.
that song.
Yeah.
That song came out when I was in
Crazy
junior high.
Train.
Yeah, well, I'm more of a Randy Rhoads fan than an Ozzy Osbourne fan, though. So
Oh, I do love Randy.
That's why I like that stuff. And it's a shame because if he hadn't died in that plane crash, he might have made multiple albums with Ozzy,
Yeah.
and I think
Oh,
they would
yeah.
have been even better than some of them were. I've got this. It's a weird thing because when it comes to like Black Sabbath, I prefer Dio era Black Sabbath to Ozzy. I've always had this thing. Ozzy's Ozzy, but is
Dio
he that
has
good
an-
a singer or musician?
Dio has an iconic voice,
Yeah.
but so does Ozzy. I think he
Yeah.
stands up on his own. Big
He's
time.
from Birmingham as well. Yeah, that's great. Yeah. Sharon.
And he had quite a bit of longevity. He was still putting out music even up into the like 2000s.
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. I find it's.
I mean, he put out a
Big
song
deal.
like last year or this year. Like, I think it was like kind of geared to be like his kind of farewell song in a way, but it wasn't bad.
I think it's a shame that Sabbath couldn't be on here rather than Ozzy in his own.
Yeah.
because if it was Sabbath, I would have had them up in A or S.
I'll have to have you guys back for the 60 one because
Hell yeah.
then you'll have a lot of them on there. So.
Well,
There
you
we
really
go.
need a
It'll just
60s
be
one.
S's
You-
across the board.
But you
sorry.
need a crossover one that's like 60s to 70s, and then one that's just 60s. You know, because if you have the crossover one, you can have Zeppelin and Sabbath and Deep Purple and all
Yes,
those
Rush.
Doors.
But yeah,
Doors. Yeah. I don't know. You guys pick with Ozzy. I mean, he's a
Ozzy-
national treasure.
He is a national
What can you say?
treasure. I would agree. Sabbath would rank a little higher, but Ozzy does have some iconic songs.
He does, but my one strike against him with that would be I don't think he really writes a lot of material.
that's yeah, that's
He
true.
may have his
Especially
name on some of it. I don't think he's really writing a lot of it. So,
he's just the drug user that shows up
Yeah.
in the vocal booth. And
so I would consider an A or a B, but I don't think I would ever consider an S.
yeah,
I'd say
B sounds good. Yeah, I mean he does have a lot of hits and bangers, like you said. No More Tears is a banger. Bark at the Moon.
Close My Eyes Forever with
Crowley.
Word.
Mr.
Well, they're
Crowley.
great albums. Yeah, I can't fault that, and he is hugely influential. So I mean, I would even have considered an A, but I just don't think he's an S, and people
Yeah.
again may shoot me down for that. But
And definitely A for the longevity.
Yeah.
Yeah,
You can't
probably
deny
not
that
gonna.
he kept going and kept going. and
yeah,
kept-
I have no problem with an A.
A sounds pretty good. It sounds pretty
Yeah.
good.
Yeah, I think
Zero.
he's
'Cause
Zero.
I'm gonna say A.
Right on.
You know, just
Okay.
because, like I said, like with his voice is so iconic.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm giving him an A, even separating him from Sabbath.
Yeah.
yeah, that's what
Okay.
we're saying. I mean, A
Yeah.
on his own.
Sabbath may have been an S.
I think if he and the band
Yeah.
had if Randy Rhoads hadn't died and continued to be in his band for 20 years after, I think it would
Yeah.
have been even better. Then it could have been S tier, in my opinion.
So I heard
Overall,
it.
I like
All
Zach
right.
Yes.
Now
I like Zach Wild quite a bit, but he's definitely
Yeah.
not Randy Rhoads.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I could
no,
understand people putting him in S because of his sheer influence in rock over the
Oh,
decades. I just am slightly less keen on him than I am on other metal figures that I love.
He
so.
pissed on the Alamo.
Yeah, but he hadn't a fucking clue where he was.
Yeah.
He didn't
Okay.
even know where the hell what, eh? What country am I in? What,
I mean, also the biting the head off the bat story is just something that's always going to be infamous with rock and metal.
Again, he
The
didn't know what he was
Osbourne
doing.
show. No, he had no idea what he was doing.
Well, he thought someone had thrown a fake bat on stage.
Yeah.
Right.
It was the
And-
Dove story that's more disturbing.
Yeah.
He's sitting
Yes.
on that female executive's lap with blood dripping down
Lost
his
him the
lip.
contract. You know, did you hear the one where he actually snorted a line of ants?
Yes.
They were at the
Yes.
pool with
Yeah.
Motley Crue, and there was a popsicle stick, and a line of ants were going to, and somebody,
know.
I don't know who it was, said something, and he went, "Oh," and he just sniffed the whole line of ants. You gotta love that. Let's see.
S tier for
do
being
you
a
guys-
legend. That's Ozzy as a person.
It is difficult because it's hard to separate the legend, as you say, from the musician.
Right.
And I use the term musician loosely when it comes to Ozzy.
Very
Um,
true.
Man who stands on stage and sings and is iconic might be a better term.
Yes, he's basically just a member of Jackass. Just that sings.
So
He's Steve-O before his time.
Yeah.
I think A
do
is
you-
reasonable. I mean,
Yeah, A is good. All right, what's
Do you
that?
feel like I do about Peter Frampton?
Oh, Peter Frampton. I'm like, I couldn't even see what that.
All I can think
Said-
of with Peter Frampton is that
Frampton
line
comes alive. Frampton comes alive. Yeah, everyone knows Frampton comes alive.
live. They had that
Frampton-
with samples of Tide.
I really think it's a missed opportunity that the follow-up album wasn't called Frampton Comes Again. But you know,
That would have been good.
But that's really the only album anyone knows is Frampton Comes Alive.
yeah, it's,
You have it in your collection, right?
Oh my god, yeah. I mean, it's like
I do too.
Everyone is officially issued a copy of that at birth, aren't they? I thought.
Yeah, I think so.
It's like a birth certificate and a copy of Frampton
I think
Comes
it might be one of the most ubiquitous albums of all time.
It is.
But it was
He's
the
a great
only one that
guitarist,
anyone
though.
knows. Oh yeah,
But
he
even
is.
at that, there's
Instrumentally,
only
he's very
4
good.
tracks on that album that anybody gives a shit about. But
Yeah.
I remember when I was a kid, and you know, again, like when I first heard the, you know, "Do You Feel," I was like, oh man, I need to hear more of this, and I just found his. You know, again, this was like the early. I didn't have money. I was in high school, so I had to go to LimeWire, if y'all remember that, or Kazaa, one of the two. And I was like, this is the most boring music.
yeah, it's very of its time. I mean, and I don't get me wrong, I do like Peter Frampton as a musician. He's a great guitar player. I loved the Humble Pie era that he did before that.
And with Jerry
But-
Lee Lewis.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, indeed. I didn't mind all that, but I think, and I do think it's a tragic. It never has been a more tragic case of a guy going bald than Peter Frampton. I mean, that's
Ah,
like-
Phil Collins.
No, come on. Peter Frampton had the lock, that hair, and then
Yeah.
you look at him now and he's like cue ball like me. So, I just don't think it's again, if you're ranking albums, one single album, that album would be in the mix. Ranking him as an influential artist of 70s, I think he's pretty low. And I love the guy, but I would say that's got to be a D as well, or a C. at
Yeah,
best.
I can't say he's got to be on the same page as Meatloaf.
Yeah.
Yeah,
D.
it's just not because he's bad. He just doesn't have enough reach.
Yeah.
The only cultural impact he had was that one episode of Family Guy, like early in their run,
Yes, yeah.
when
Well, that-
Peter gets hit by the lightning and realizes that Lois would have been a lot better off without him.
Oh yeah.
He has him come in and do "Ooh Baby, I Love Your Way" on the golf course.
Brilliant musician, but other than that album, pretty much a bit of a niche. Yeah.
Okay. So
Oh,
D,
now we're
as
talking
I
the
heard,
good stuff.
D.
D. What else? D.
I'll give it
Another
D.
D.
Yeah.
Zero. You D.
Yeah, I'm D on that. I said he had to be on the same page.
All right. Next up, better say they're good.
Just go.
Queen.
Can we go S? Can we just
Yes.
go
Can we just
No
show S and
argument.
move on?
like do
S,
S and move on. No,
S
S.
and move on. We don't even need explanation.
The most
Yeah.
iconic. God, he had a voice of an angel.
Everything about Queen is S. Everything about them.
Everything.
Honestly, one of my favorite songs that they did was "Show Must Go On."
Oh,
Not only was
good.
it a fantastic song, but the story behind it, because he was already sick at this point. He was about a year from dying.
Yeah.
He comes in, drinks a glass of wine, smokes a cigarette, and does it in one
I know.
take.
Yeah.
One take. He did that song.
And it's
It's
like,
incredible.
come and get, standing in front of the wind, come and get me,
Yeah.
Stand in front of the fire. I'm
Nice.
defying it. Yeah,
And they did the soundtrack to Highlander. That's already in the Z.
Yeah.
it's legendary enough. Yeah,
And
it's
you
a
want-
shame that there was
Princes of
never
the
a
universe, man.
it's a shame there was never a second movie.
Yeah, I know, right?
So I'm going to be Mr. Annoying old guy. I saw Queen for the first time in 1980, and then I was lucky enough to see them again in '86 at Nebworth. So I saw them twice. Religious experiences, just the most phenomenal experience ever.
Just watching him at Wembley for Live Aid,
Yeah,
I've never seen anyone control a crowd like that.
Yeah.
exactly.
Ever.
Oh,
Michael
awesome.
Jackson's the only one who could come close to me
Yeah.
in
Yeah.
controlling an audience of
Mhm.
that size.
And they had the songs. The material is just unbelievable.
Yep.
Brian May, phenomenal
Musicianship.
guitarist. Roger Taylor's a great drummer.
Oh, fuck, I love him. I love Roger Taylor.
John Deacon. What was it about the 70s and bass players named John?
John. That's right. John Entwistle, John Deacon.
John Entwistle, John Paul Jones.
Yeah. Well, it's because they were, yeah, they had, it wasn't that a law that if you're going to be the bass player, you have to change your name?
John McVie.
Yep.
I'm completely forgetting John
No,
McVie.
yeah, it was a musicians' union thing. Only it was in order so that bass players could move between bands and there would be no
Yeah.
trouble.
They were all the best players of the 70s were named John.
I have a John Deacon T-shirt. I should have worn it. I'm probably the only guy in the world that's got a John Deacon T-shirt. But yeah, there's everything about Queen is exceptional.
Yes.
There's nothing, even their not so good stuff is exceptional.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Nobody in the world, I think, isn't aware of Queen and the catalogue and the impact they have on people is just.
Yeah.
It's never good. They're going to be around 100 years from now. People will still be listening to Queen.
Yeah.
And
And
again,
we've been talking about like them having like one song in a show somewhere. Queen has been on tons of movie soundtracks. They've been in
Oh,
tons
You
of
can't
shows.
go to a sporting event without hearing "We Will Rock,
We Will
You"
Rock You.
or Bohemian Rhapsody, or in some cases, "Don't Stop Me Now."
Yeah. Oh yeah.
well, I mean, the fact that Bohemian Rhapsody charted
Another one
twice.
bites the dust. Yeah,
We are
You
the
can't-
champions.
You
We're the
can't
champ-
go to a nightclub in Berlin without meeting a guy dressed as Freddie Mercury.
Oh yeah.
Again, when you talk cultural impact, that Family Guy episode where Brian kept torturing Stewie with the News of the World cover.
yes.
Oh,
It had me in tears. It was so funny.
I mean, Wayne's World. Everybody, everybody.
Again,
likes Bohemian
That
Rhapsody.
made the song chart twice.
Yeah.
That album has my favorite Queen song of all time on it. "Spread Your Wings." It's my favorite Queen song.
I made
Spread Your
a
Wings.
for the News of the World cover. I made a meme of that with Comics Division on Sixth Division, where the robot is Culture Casino and he's got dead members in his hands.
Is he looking at them? Is he sad? What's going on?
Yeah, there's no, yeah, we could talk about Queen for hours.
Oh, yeah.
There's something for everybody as well. Something in there for everybody. Metal, pop, funk. It's all in there. And Flash.
Yeah, Flash Gordon.
Yes.
Yes.
Crazy Little Thing Called Love is
Hang on.
probably my favorite track, other than Show Must Go On.
Yeah.
Bicycle.
Yeah,
Bicycle.
there's
Bicycle.
not an album where you can't find at least
I
one
want to
song that's
ride
good.
my bicycle.
Sorry, that's my fault. Get rid of that.
The Ramones.
The Ramones.
Their cultural impact is huge.
Yes.
Yup.
Yeah.
I mean, they really set the punk genre in effect.
And they, not to, because we were saying like Kiss keeps, is simple, but Ramones like had a formula like to keep it simple and
Yeah.
to keep it poppy, which was like kind of like, I don't even know how to explain. Just like that was their mentality. So and they nailed it. So like, they really kept it simple and killed it, which is ironic because Kiss is keep it simple, stupid.
Yeah.
But Ramones really killed it at keeping it simple, stupid.
And so
Yeah.
even though the band's not, obviously because several of the members are dead,
Yeah.
but their longevity as a cultural phenomenon
Yeah.
is still almost unbeatable for that genre of music.
Yeah.
Yeah.
When you think
Again,
of,
I
when you
was
think of
lucky enough
punk
to see them
style,
live in '79, and it was just freaking awesome. 30 songs in the set, and unbelievable. Just
That's awesome. Well,
It
they're
was
all 2
great.
minutes, but
even it's like 1, 2, 3, 4. But you know, they always said, and I agree with them, that their aim was to be the Bay City Rollers. They didn't want to be this heavy, rebellious, whatever. They wanted to be a pop band, and they did that perfectly. 'Cause
They
those
did.
songs are just slices
super
of-
catchy.
What were you saying now,
Oh, yeah.
Zero?
I was saying that their style, like when you think of like punk, you think of the
Ramones.
style that they set.
Yeah.
You know,
What was that that concert venue that they played, or it might have
Heebie-jeebies.
been more like Heebie-Jeebies. Yeah, I saw a documentary I think on that. And the bathroom that I would never go in.
Well, it reminds me
yeah.
of the Sex Pistols. There's a story I know about them because I've actually seen The Wall. There's a venue in Tulsa, Oklahoma called Kane's Ballroom,
Hmm.
and the Sex Pistols played there in '79. And in that building, the bathroom or the green room is right next to the women's bathroom. And when they're playing, Sid Vicious, of course, is high off his gourd. He wants to perv on the girls in the bathroom. So he literally punched a hole through the wall from the green room to the bathroom. And they cut out that section of wall and framed it. And it's in the main office at the Kane's Ballroom. See the hole that Sid Vicious punched through.
He punches the girl sitting there on the toilet, just like mortified. He's all like, "What you doing?"
What the?
These days, you'd go to jail for that.
Oh, God, yes.
Yeah. I think the Ramones'
No.
significance can't be understated. It's especially for American new wave. There's no other band even approach them in that category.
No,
they did
it's
the theme of the Spider-Man cartoon.
Yeah,
Spider-Man.
Well, and there was
Yeah.
a movie. I think it was Rock and Roll High School.
Yeah.
The
that's all
only
their
two
music.
things I remember about that movie is the very end where they blew up the teacher's beamer, and the flaming tire rolls and stops during the credits. So the credits are going up, just watching this tire on fire, and then the scene. I think it was the Ramones that did it, where they're doing a drug test, and they all have apple juice in their jackets. So they put the apple juice in the cup, and then they're like, and they like trade cups, and the old Wallbreaker lady like faints.
One thing I have to say though, Paul, you're wrong. You wouldn't get in trouble doing that nowadays. You might run into a dude. That's the
Yeah.
the danger of doing it.
He might think he's gonna make a glory hole, and
Yeah, he
Right,
busts
yeah.
the hole in. There's a
Punches
dude
the
sitting
hole,
there going,
sticks it in, bang, right in the eye of Dick.
Jeremy would be like, "Hey,
That's
I'm
when
getting
he's
sorted here."
renamed to Paul Holdickin.
Hold Dick in.
Dick in.
I like
Oh
it.
dear.
Paul Hold Dick
Yeah.
in.
All right, so where are they on the list? Seems pretty iconic. So where do they?
I'd
fall,
put
though?
them in A.
Yeah.
I would have no problem for me putting them in as an A. I think they're one of the most influential bands coming out of the 70s. They had a stack of great tunes. Their act was fantastic. They've been culturally significantly spawned dozens of other bands. To this day, the Ramones are beloved. I think they deserve to be an A, in my opinion.
I just can't disagree with that.
Lasting influence.
Yeah.
Paul?
Hey, sounds good to me.
Extra. Where are you?
I mean, I can't deny their influence or what they've inspired other bands to do. I'm not the biggest fan of their music, and I'd want to give them a B for that. But I'm gonna agree to the A because of the fact that they have the influence, and so many great bands have come out of what they said.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's also important to remember, I think, that a lot of the British punk stuff, which became dominant in the punk scene, the British bands were very dominant. They all looked to the Ramones as the forerunners.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah.
they
We wouldn't,
inspired them. So
we wouldn't have 80s new wave without the Ramones.
absolutely, yeah.
That's my favorite genre.
Aerosmith. Now talk about longevity. I mean,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
I was gonna say now. I think after like 2000, like Don't Want to Miss Thing, and God, that was so weird. I saw Aerosmith. I want to say in 2003. Maybe it was 2000. They were on tour with
Motley
ZZ
Crue?
Top.
Okay.
No. No,
I saw him with Motley Crue.
Yeah, I wish I had seen the two together, but like when we're playing "Don't Want to Miss a Thing," it's so weird because he's got like he's basically like sexualizing his own daughter during the song. I'm like, that's but man, there's a band that from the 70s to the late 90s was putting out hits. They were a hit factory. I mean, there's a lot of songs I just have fond memories of growing up with Aerosmith. Love in an Elevator was such cool music. Again, that was weird because it was Liv Tyler too.
And talk about longevity. Dude looked like a lady. Who would have predicted that?
Yeah.
One of the other
They're
things,
fortune tellers.
yeah. One of the other things too is that Aerosmith's collaboration with Run DMC really helped make hip hop
Good
mainstream.
catch, yeah, good call.
And that's massive when it comes to their influence, whether you're a hip hop fan or not. The fact that they worked with Run DMC was genre defying, and you have to give them credit for that. I don't really think from seeing them in concert. Now, granted, I saw them in the 2000s, so Joe Perry and in fact, I saw Joe Perry like a week or so before he broke his shoulder. Steven Tyler just kind of stands there these days, but looking at old videos of him, he was a little bit more animated. So as far as
he would. When I saw him like late 2000s, he was doing like that thing where he's like running on a swinging over the audience. He was very acrobatic. He'd run around. He was crazy.
And his voice is something special.
Right,
just
like
to be able to
Ozzy.
hit those notes. Yeah,
it's iconic. It's Aerosmith when you hear those vocals. And to the point, his voice has not changed all that much, and all the time he's been singing.
Except from Dream On. Is it me, or does
No,
Dream
not
On
you.
sound nothing like Steven Tyler?
Very different for him because he's actually singing.
Right,
No,
and then after that he developed this cadence,
No.
and then he started doing.
I love Dream On. Sweet
Janie's Got a
Emotions
Gun.
for me. Yeah, I love Janie's Got a
Living
Gun.
on
When
the Edge.
he did that solo album a few years ago, and my wife and I saw him in Oklahoma playing a gig, and he sang beautifully at that.
Yeah.
That was a different side of him because he sang a lot of the songs from that album, and then when he did the Aerosmith song, he wasn't doing it in that higher register. That he was actually singing a lot of them, and he's a really good singer. Like when he wants to be singing a different style. So
Technically, I've done a cover of Jamie's Got a Gun. I did Dermy's Got a Gun, where he killed us for teasing him. It was awful. Don't ever. I took it off the thing because I never want anyone to hear that again. Sweet Emotions, though, I'll tell you. Sweet Emotions. I got almost killed myself stoned to Sweet Emotions. Me and my friends, we had very little pot, and we were throwing a party, so we decided to clean out the shed. We cleaned out this shed, and we're just hotbox it, and that way we'll make it stretch. Well, then like two guys came who both had pot, and we're all like, okay, we'll match bowls, and we'll make it, then we could get more out of it. And we closed that shed up, and I spent I'd say about 4 hours in this shed, not being able to see my hand in front of my face. The smoke was so thick, and the whole time had Sweet Emotions playing.
So you were
just on loop.
So
Yep,
you were
in the corner.
cosplaying as Steve
It's fun.
Tyler. You were cosplaying as Steve Tyler.
And then when I walked out, I was like, my eyes are like, like saucers. I'm like, and then the next day, I woke up, my throat, I couldn't breathe. It was so thrashed for smoking for that long. Oh God.
My favorite Steve Tyler story is when they were at the height of their drug abuse in the 70s. They used to close the set with a particular song. And one night they decided they would open the set with that song for a change. So they went on, they did the song, and Steve Tyler walks off and says, "Thanks, good night." And he wouldn't come back. They couldn't get him to come back.
Because he thought it was over.
We just did the whole set. We're done. We just
Wow,
he
legend.
was that far out of it. He wouldn't go back on. No, we just did the set. Don't you remember? We finished with whatever. So,
I'm one of the few people that actually liked the Nine Lives album. There was some really tasty tunes on that album.
Yeah, I think they've got a long history of material beyond the stuff in the 70s and 80s. There's a lot of stuff.
In the 90s, the whole Alicia Silverstone run.
Yeah.
He had like what? 3 or 4
Crying.
with her.
Crying, Crazy. I like
Yeah.
those.
Yeah,
Those are
yeah,
good
yeah.
songs.
I think a perspective for me as a Brit, because Aerosmith were not that huge in Britain in the 70s, but those of us who were into rock knew who they were. When you look at the 70s and all these dominant British bands, Zeppelin, Deep Purple, Black Sabbath, a ton of British bands were dominating. To me, the Aerosmith were the one American band that stood out and could match those guys.
Yeah.
They could go toe to toe with those guys and still be seen in the same grouping. They were the American band. That was the perception we had in the UK as rock fans. So for me, they're an S, but that's just me. You know.
It's funny because my ex-girlfriend, it was like her favorite band and all that, and for some reason I love them, but I just wanted to hate them for some reason. But
Maybe
I
because
can't
she
even.
wasn't giving you the boom boom.
No, there was plenty of boom boom, but
No, I mean, after she became your ex.
oh no, not even. But no, because growing up, I grew up in the mid, or I listened to a lot of stuff in the mid '90s. So a lot of like I was listening to like heavier stuff like Korn and Slipknot and whatever in the '90s and all that. And so like I just wanted to dog on like classic rock and stuff. And for some reason, I wanted to hate Aerosmith, but they nailed it, man. They're definitely an S
nail it
tier.
every time. Yeah.
Paul, you should refer
It
to
is.
her as your Revolution X.
Oh,
Did anybody ever play
I
this video game?
remember. Yes,
I
I
have
remember
the
that.
SNES version.
Yeah, you
Oh,
shot.
nice.
So it says here, music is the weapon. It is a light gun game, like the Terminator 2 light gun game.
The Aerosmith game, right?
Yes,
I've played this.
you shoot CDs at the
Yes.
at the bad guy.
I've
So-
played this. That is hilarious. So yeah, even I can't deny I wanted to hate them, but yeah, and like you said, during the British American rock like feud.
Just the sheer body of their work.
Yeah,
Right.
yeah,
They
and like
never
you said,
I mean, up until let's say like the last 10 years, they never really stopped producing new music.
no,
Right.
and I mean honestly, even 2001, just push play. That was around the time I started dating my ex, and she would play this constantly. I'm like, this is Aerosmith, aren't they some old man? And even I couldn't even stop hate on that
Summer
album. I'm like,
Vacation
damn.
in the 80s was a great album.
Yeah.
Gems, Rocks. I mean, just they had a lot of great albums. I mean, and it wasn't just the hits. They still had deep cut stuff that was
Yeah. Like you said, 9 Lives. I clicked on that. I remember seeing the album cover, and I'm like, oh, Taste of India. I love that song.
I mean,
Great song.
I love the song Falling in Love is Hard on the Knees.
Yeah,
That's just a great title.
yeah.
I love that all the hit songs they had, all the amazing songs they have, they didn't hit number one, I don't think, till I Don't Want to Miss a Thing. That was their first number one. Can you believe that? That
That's
floored me
nuts.
when I heard that.
Severely on the movie. Was the fact that it was on
Yeah.
the movie
Armageddon.
soundtrack. Of course, do you remember who actually composed the music for that movie?
Oh God, I've heard that, but I can't remember.
Wasn't it Hans Zimmer?
Trevor Rabin,
No, Trevor
the
Reed.
guitarist from the 80s version of Yes.
Yes, in Asia, yeah.
Oh, jeez.
Yeah, he actually
Nice.
composed the score for that movie.
Oh,
Ah.
And he's also South African.
He's South African.
Oh, is he?
South
Yeah,
African.
he's a Elon Musk type South African.
Hope he doesn't have a farm.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, he used to have a farm, maybe. He wouldn't have it anymore.
Yeah.
So okay,
it's hard
so
for me to go anything lower than A tier with Aerosmith.
It's S for me because
Yeah.
their influence is enormous. They've got a huge catalog, great performers. They stand out. They're a band that stand out as being
Yeah.
at the top.
Well, and they were able to navigate the musical changes that came with each decade.
Yes.
yeah,
Right.
They were able to
Yeah.
change
Without-
the sound
Without
enough.
alienating the fan base.
Yeah,
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 I mean,
exactly.
they were able to tweak it just enough in the 80s and then enough again in the 90s to stay relevant, but
Mm.
still sound like Aerosmith.
yeah.
Mm.
And that's really hard to do.
Paul, where are you?
I'm an S. Yeah, I put it up
S.
at S tier. Yeah,
What about you,
can't
Zero?
Uh,
deny it.
I'm willing to accept the S. I would say nothing lower than an A.
Okay, so I think we got mostly S's. Nice.
Yeah,
All right.
Yeah, Steven Tyler is a man. He's a fucktard.
yeah.
Yeah.
I'm
But,
trying
I
to
mean, that's
separate
the
that.
sad part is most of these guys, like,
Yeah.
like as the aforementioned Gene Simmons, you know.
Okay, Sticks. Some people love them, some people despise them.
My
How you
wife
guys feel?
loves Sticks, and when I was telling her the show agenda, she's like, "You can't give them. You got to give them an A or an S." And I'm like, "But Sticks."
Yeah, they
Mm,
don't have the catalog to be an A,
they don't.
but they can't be any lower than a B, I think, just because the sheer
Yeah.
musicianship. But the problem
Yeah.
is when Dennis DeYoung left, they
Yes.
really haven't been able to maintain any kind of relevancy when he left, because he wrote so many of their great hits. So for
love-
me, when Dennis DeYoung left, that's when Styx kind of became a cover band at that point.
Mm,
I love South Park if you go,
I'm
sailing,
Sailing
yes, finish the whole
away.
song.
he has to finish it. He has to finish it.
I know, I love that. I was listening to Styx, in prep. I was listening to all the bands, and when "Come Sailing Away" came on, and I'm like, oh my god, fucking South Park.
But that run of
but-
albums from Grand Illusion, Paradise Theater, Cornerstone, Pieces of Eight, there are so many great songs on that 4-album run.
Mm.
And obviously you can't not love Mr. Roboto.
Yes.
Yeah.
The
Yes.
album's weird, and I can see why Dennis DeYoung left after that, but that song alone is killer.
It is. Secret, secret. I got a secret.
I understand what he was trying to do. He was trying to do kind of like Tommy.
Right.
Yeah.
He was trying to make a rock opera, but the band kind of fought him on it quite a bit. But Dennis DeYoung's another one of those people. Vocally, I put him right up there, near Freddie Mercury, Steve Perry levels.
Yeah,
His
yeah.
voice is so
Later.
crystal clear,
I
especially
forgot.
the high register.
I forgot Styx did Lady.
Mhm.
I forgot they did Renegade.
Babe.
I thought those were two different bands. I thought Renegade was like, I don't know who I thought. I thought Def Leppard did
Kansas
Renegade.
did Renegade. No, that's just kidding.
Right. And,
Power Man's figured it out. Great song. Too Much Time on My Hands.
Yeah, I like that.
They have a lot of great songs, but they just didn't pierce that cultural
Yeah.
level
Right.
that that Ozzy and the Ramones and the Eagles did. But
Right.
they had such great songs and great musicianship that you can't deny they can't be any lower than a B.
I think a B is about right. I think
These-
it's the cultural penetration and the yeah. I mean, great albums, but of their time. I think.
Yeah.
I don't
Yeah.
think anyone's really talking
Although-
about Styx.
Oddly enough, my favorite Styx song is such a deep cut that most people don't remember it. It's Boat on a River.
It's
Where it
number
should be.
7 on the popular.
It's where it should be on the river.
On
Yes,
their,
yeah.
yeah.
But it was such a different song because it was Chuck Pangione playing an actual upright bass with a bow,
Mhm.
and you had the accordion and the mandolin, and
Yeah.
it was such a different sound to all their other songs,
Hmm.
but it's so beautifully sung.
I would feel guilty about ranking them here because I've never listened to that much of them. I think I've got their greatest.
I did.
hits. That's it.
I had no choice. My dad had
Yeah.
almost all of their albums.
So you're probably more
Yeah, I'm a lot more
suitable to rank them. Yeah.
Okay.
Sounds
They
like
had
a good
four run-
spot.
They had a 4-album run that had a lot of hits, had a lot of great music, but then after Killjoy or Kilroy was here and they booted Dennis DeYoung,
Hmm.
they've made albums since then, and they've made music since then, and it's not bad.
Sounds very
So
beast.
they're like one of the bands on this list that they were most relevant in the era we're discussing.
Yeah,
Yeah.
because a lot of these bands, their peaks were actually later.
It's on a par with Foreigner then, I think, in terms of amount of quality material and
Yeah.
longevity. So
So you guys are all B, and Zero is S because his wife's making him.
No,
Yeah. All right.
Zero's gonna get zero love tonight because if he put
Yeah. You know what? For Zero's sake, let's put in an S tier, just so he doesn't,
Doesn't
no
have to
troubles
sleep
with the
alone.
lady tonight.
For musicianship, I would say yes, because they are all phenomenal musicians.
Right. You hear those songs and they snap. They're definitely
But,
you can.
but are they really more influential
Yeah.
than the Eagles?
no, they're
for
not.
instance?
But I mean, there's so many of their songs I love. Snowblind, Sweet Madam Blue, when they wrote for the bicentennial in '76 was fantastic.
So where are you, Zero? You said
I'll settle with the B.
so with B. Somebody
Sleeping on the couch
sleeping
tonight.
alone. Okay. Marshall Tucker Band. I'm sorry. Poor Zero's yawning. He's tired.
Interesting choice, the Marshall Tucker Band, because I actually have got a number of their albums and I've always really liked them. They're in that kind of weird jazz, blues, country
Yeah,
thing.
they're better than the Eagles at it. That's for sure.
Yeah, but definitely, and yeah, they've got the 2 or 3 big hits. Phenomenal band, great musicians, but I don't think their influence, other than the outside the southern rock circuit, is huge these days. You know, they're a bit of a, you'll hear
People-
them in certain bars in Dallas where I used to live. It's
I
almost,
People just
I
kind of
like-
forget they're there.
yeah,
I like
a
Can't You
beautiful
See?
band.
That's the one I
Yeah,
like.
beautiful band. I mean,
Oh, yeah.
I love their albums, but I think they're fairly niche these days.
Niche.
You know?
So we looking at the lower half because the
I'd say
nicheness?
C
Yeah,
because they're not as bad as Meatloaf or Peter Frampton. They have some hits
yeah.
and they're better musicians.
Oh, way better. Yeah. Well, not better. But Frampton's a great musician, but there's a band. They're a fantastic band. Just very much in a particular channel. I think you wouldn't say that the outside of that channel they were hugely known particularly these days.
Yeah, because they were kind of lost in the shuffle behind like the Allman Brothers and the Doobie Brothers.
Yeah.
Leonard Skinner. They were Charlie Daniels. They were kind of like riding the coattails of that
Yeah.
genre.
Yeah, beautiful band, but nowhere near as influential as many of the other bands in here.
Leonard Skinner's another one I was surprised didn't start in the 70s. I thought they were completely 70s, but I think it was like late 60s. They really did.
But you got to draw the line somewhere. You have to draw the line somewhere.
I mean, you could almost draw a line for a lot of those bands that you're talking about at 68 because they were coming out of the Flower Power movement and they were just getting their start right after the Woodstock era.
Yeah.
So you could almost take Woodstock and that's where the drawing line is between the Flower Power 60s and then the past that.
That's a good point. Yeah, I would have been tempted to include Skinner in this list because they didn't get their deal with MCA until 70 or 71. So, kind of that's when they started. Kind of, I know were going before that, but
Paul,
but it's marginal. I mean,
what about you? How do you feel about them? Or do you even know?
I'm not too familiar with them. I mean, I'm listening to their top 10 most popular songs on Spotify and all that, and not recognizing many songs here. So personally,
Again, he was right. They're very niche. The only reason I knew because my dad was a huge acid and southern rock fan.
Yeah,
I
there's a
got
couple
lot of
songs I
other
reckon.
Can't You
Okay.
See is the only one I really know.
Yeah, there's heard it on a. Was it Heard It on a Love?
Fire on the Mountain, I think,
Fire on the
was
Mountain,
another
yeah.
one. Take the Highway, I think, was another
Yeah,
one.
I've got a few of their albums, and they are really nice. They're pretty mellow.
Yeah,
It's definitely by no means you call them a rock band. They're pretty mellow, very jazzy. They have a flute player and all that. It's yeah.
but I'd probably rank them somewhere on the lower end.
He's
yeah.
fine.
I
Yeah,
think so.
doesn't mean they're a bad band. They're just not.
No, yeah,
Yeah, stacking up against the others, their influence is a lot less.
right.
What about you,
They're-
Zero?
I mean, I'm fine with having them in C. It's not a band I'm really familiar with, but
If
they have more hits in my book than Frampton or Meatloaf, so I feel like they got to rank above.
If we were ranking bands from South Carolina, I'd put them at the top.
Okay, Talking Heads,
Oh gosh.
Wild Wild Life. I love that song.
I don't think they can be anywhere below a B for me. I mean, as far as the showmanship, they have a lot of relevance as far as their songs still getting played to this day. I mean,
They were a huge influence to a lot of bands in the early 80s.
yeah.
Psycho Killer.
I mean,
That's a really hard song to have sex to.
yeah.
I discovered that one the hard way.
Which
But
one?
like,
Psycho Killer? Yeah.
Yeah.
You discovered it the hard way?
Yeah. It's a hard song to have sex to.
Ah.
He's all throwing off my rhythm.
You know, they are more of a band that found their stride in the 80s.
Yeah. That's why I asked that question. I'm like, because Talking
Yeah.
Heads as a '70s band is okay. As an '80s band, they're great.
We are
Yeah.
ranking their whole catalog.
Entire catalog. So
Yeah.
then
Yeah.
that bumps
And-
them up.
That concert film they did in '82 is I think a landmark film
Yeah.
when it comes to actually seeing a live band in film form.
Have
the
you
fact
by
they're doing a 4K restoration makes me a happy day.
Have you by chance seen the parody they did? Who did it?
Well, in Living Color, on In Living Color, I think Jim
Oh, yeah.
Carrey. Jim
Oh, they
Carrey
did it.
was-
Oh,
Yeah.
that's hilarious.
Yeah,
No,
the
more.
Muppets
did it. The Muppets
Um,
actually did that. They had
yeah.
Kermit in the big suit doing burning down the house. It was hilarious.
Oh, what was the show that the two guys from SNL, Bill Hader and Fred Armisen did a show where it's all fake documentaries. Documentary
Millennial?
Now.
Oh,
What's that?
documentary. Yeah, I remember that.
Documentary Now. And there was a whole episode on this fake band called Test Pattern. And the songs were actually great, but the whole episode is just basically one big parody of the Talking Heads live concert. You could when you watch it, you're like, oh yeah, it's totally they're parodying it. But yeah, no, I love that. That's a great great parody to watch.
Okay, so where do they land on the list?
A or B for me, honestly, because like I said, I'm not too familiar with
I would, yeah, I'd
fat
put them on
past
the
their
B
like
just
main.
because they didn't really last much beyond the mid '80s. But
I mean,
Yeah,
their longevity
I
wasn't
agree
there,
with that.
but their cultural impact is definitely there.
Yeah.
So I mean, B is where I kind of sit with them because
Okay,
they just didn't have the discography to really put them in A for me.
yeah,
okay.
I mean, if
So
they'd had a
yeah,
bigger
so
cultural
B.
impact, because the Ramones didn't have a large discography either, but their cultural impact is far
Yeah,
more prevalent than the Talking Heads.
yeah. All right, the Cars.
Oh, I
That's
love
another
the
hard one.
Cars. I
Love
love
Cars.
the Cars, man. The
I do love
self-titled
it up.
album, the self-titled
Shake it
album is
up.
one of my favorites, and
Shake
that's an
it
album
up.
I'll listen to front to back.
Well, I do love the fact that when Enrico Kasich quit and said, "You're not going to get anywhere without me," they immediately wrote another hit.
Oh,
Yeah.
Drive.
Drive.
Drive is a staple in my.
Just what I needed. I like
That's
just what I
that's
needed.
one of our tummy rubbers.
Damn.
But the
Who's
self-titled
on?
album's like
Yeah.
one of my top 10 albums. It's a band I gotta see them live while they're still around.
Oh, just what I needed.
Yeah.
Oh man, yeah, great.
You might think I'm crazy.
You might think,
Oh,
yeah,
it's magic.
good times
I've got
roll.
the 7-inch picture
Yeah.
disc single of my best friend's girl.
Best friend's
which I
girl.
bought when it came
Oh,
out.
I do love that song.
I've got this picture disc single.
girl.
Let's go. Come on.
She's
Wow,
on
wow, wow, wow.
It's just they don't have the name recognition that a lot of these.
Yeah.
Yeah.
especially in the 80s.
Yeah.
So, and for me, it's still a B. They had a great string of hits, but their cultural impact just really isn't there.
Yeah, I mean, how many people say, "Hey, I started a band because I heard the Cars"? Maybe
Yeah.
a few, I don't know, but you know,
I do say that I get on the dance floor whenever I hear the Cars. That's a.
Oh yeah, like I said, they're a great
Um,
band, great musicians. They had a great songwriters, and you can't deny their body of work, but their body of
Yeah.
work is really stuck where it came from.
Right.
Yeah, but none of their
Right.
music's played in strip clubs, so I mean,
No.
you gotta judge.
well,
The Void.
have you been to every strip club? Do you know?
Yeah. They're played in 80s nights in every bar, every other bar that's doing 80s nights.
They definitely are. But it's funny because it's music you still hear in commercials, you still hear on the
Yes,
radio.
Yes.
They
You
did
know,
a
so-
Bob's Burgers cover.
Oh yeah.
If you were to go out in to the general public though and say to them how many are the Cars your favorite band? How many people would say the Cars were their favorite band?
True.
I've
Straw
heard,
man argument. Straw man.
yeah,
argument.
I've heard from a few people that they're either one of their favorites at least. You know, when people are talking like classic rock, they're like, oh yeah, the Cars. They're mentioned among, the likes of Led Zeppelin and Queen, and it sounds crazy, but I always hear someone toss in the Cars because I mean the catalog of hits they had is undeniable.
Hmm.
I wouldn't put them that high.
Yeah,
I mean,
can't
I'm
put
willing to
like
go B.
I'd
willing to
go B. I'd go
Yeah.
B.
B.
Yeah.
I'd even give it a. No,
I'd
B's
personally
good.
give them an A just because they're one of my favorites. But
Are they really a better and more influential band than Def Leppard?
Right. Or I'd say they're on the same level.
We're on the same level.
but I'm
I think they're on
I'm
the same
saying I have
level.
personal bias.
Okay.
Yeah, that's
So
fair
I heard
enough.
an A, and you guys are all B's.
I go B.
Yeah.
B? Okay.
Because I'm also looking at the cultural significance. B is they're all great musicians in that
Fair.
B level, but they just never pushed beyond that veil.
Right.
Okay. The Clash.
The Clash does have that. I always hear the Clash being, a lot of like some like
Our
not
influence.
my favorite, but other artists'
Yeah.
favorite bands.
I think Dave Grohl.
Should
really
I stay or should I
credited-
go?
Yeah, should I stay or
Yeah,
should I go?
London Calling, Rock the Casbah. I mean, they really
Yeah.
didn't hit their mainstream stride.
London Calling. That's another
Yeah.
good one.
Yeah.
London Calling.
I fought the law.
I fought the law was a big one. White Riot, the Clash. There's a bunch of stuff that was earlier than the ones that when they finally made it over to America and had big hits. There was a bunch of earlier stuff that was pretty seminal in the British punk scene. This is one of these weird things because hugely influential, but a relatively small catalogue of albums and songs.
Right.
Like mainly like 3-4 albums at most, I think. I can't quite remember. But enormously influential. I mean, a million bands would cite the Clash as being. A
I
band
hear
that-
them when you hear the Ramones. The Clash is usually mentioned along with them.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but I don't think they're as good of a band as the Ramones.
True. Yeah, they do have some great hits, but not as impactful as the Ramones.
I do like them a lot, and I certainly at the time I absolutely adored them when I was like 15 or whatever, and they were releasing all these great punk singles in Britain. The influence is huge. If you were to analyze the music and the catalog, it might lead a lot of people to say, "Well, there's some good stuff in there," but
Yeah.
I mean, Courtney, my friend Courtney, will hate me for not putting them in the top, but just the influence enough is enough to put them up in the sort of B or A.
Yeah.
What's the body of work?
Right.
I know a lot of people cite their albums as being brilliant. I think they're pretty good. I've never felt they were the best albums I've ever heard of.
Yeah.
See, people are going to hate me for that.
I agree. B sounds like a B sounds like a good spot. I want to put them a bit up, but when you look at the list in A, you're like, nah, I don't think they should be in the A.
Although, if I was to compare the influence and legacy of the Clash against Talking Heads or the Cars, I would put the Clash above them.
Well, yeah.
Yes.
So,
The Ramones? Would you put them next to the Ramones?
well, I think I'm almost tempted to do so.
I mean, like I said, I've heard anytime I hear like the Ramones being mentioned as an influence, almost immediately the Cars are mentioned after that.
Yeah, like the
You mean
first,
Clash?
You mean the Clash?
the Clash. The first Clash album was enormously important in the new wave. The first Clash album with the
Right.
the spoof Elvis cover or whatever.
Yeah.
And it was exciting stuff. The music was exciting, and the musicians involved. Unfortunately, Joe Strummer died quite young, so otherwise they may still have been. I know they split, but they probably would have done more stuff together eventually. Just because of the influence, I'm tempted to put them in A. For me, that's just me. And the fact that, other than the Sex Pistols, I mean, that's the two big British ones, Sex Pistols and the Clash. And I think the Clash are way better than the Pistols. I love Nevermind the Bollocks, but that's one album. The Clash at least had 4 or 5 albums that were pretty good.
Okay, so we got
So-
1B, 1A. Where are you, Zero?
I'm a B.
AB? And CJ, where are you?
It's hard to fight that cultural influence because I hear their name all the time. when bands talk about where their influence came from. And again, like I said, I always hear that with the Ramones. I got to go A on my own.
So the argument is the A is because their cultural significance. What is your guys' argument for B? Just that they're not as big as the Ramones and that category.
Maybe, yeah. I guess maybe I'm just thinking personally, because I'm like, I think Cars have more and better hits than the Clash.
I agree. Yeah. And
so that's why I want to put them there.
I suspect a lot of new wave and post new wave aficionados would probably not like you for saying that.
You know what?
Really? Are we really saying the Cars are a more influential and better band than the Clash?
Not saying more influential. I'm just saying that they're
like the quality of.
You like them more.
Yeah.
No, maybe they're not. Maybe that's what it is.
I like the Cars more than the Clash.
I'm just being.
I'm just saying. No. I'm just saying. Yeah. No. Like the quality of the hits, I think are there's more. Not that they're better, but it just seems like there's more hits.
There's more from the song catalog that you enjoy personally.
Yeah. So I guess in general, I'm just saying I like.
I think the Cars have got far broader appeal. Let's put it that way.
Yeah, that's what it be.
They had a lot more mainstream appeal than the Clash.
Yeah, Clash is like I said, it's like your artist's favorite band, but not your favorite band. I don't know.
Okay,
I'll put them in B. Okay, Tom Petty and the Heartbreakers. We already know Paul's like screw him.
Okay, well maybe I misheard the story, but I remember hearing a story that like he's basically just a face for a label that or some producers just needed a. I may have heard the story wrong.
That face.
Huh? They picked that face. Hey, there weren't that many faces in the.
I'm not sure I could agree with that, but I love Tom Petty, so I'm not sure I could agree with that.
But as song catalogs and hits and all that, they're great. But I in the back of my head, I have to confirm this story. I may be hearing it wrong.
I just fact checked it. He wrote his own songs.
Okay, all right, then thank you. Because I'm like the last week I've been thinking like I don't remember where I even heard it.
I don't think anyone was pulling Tom Petty strings.
Paul's
Right
been voted off the island.
Okay, goodbye guys.
So Tom Petty obviously wooed your mother illegally is what this is your problem. So you're rebelling against that. Tom Petty had relations with your mother.
I always hated the video for "Don't Come Around Here No More."
You know who that song's about, right?
No way.
That song's about Stevie Nicks.
Well, yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's funny because she always wanted to join the band. She said, oh, "Can I join the Heartbreakers?" He said, "There's no women in the Heartbreakers. There's no girls."
I know they did the song together. They did do that.
Yeah,
one
but he was letting her in the band. Just you're not joining the band.
Yeah.
I have ever since like Damn the Torpedoes, I've absolutely adored Tom Petty. I think he's one of the most important American artists of the 70s, 80s, 90s, and up until he died. I mean, I saw him on the 40th anniversary tour, and it was magnificent. It was like a spiritual experience, I have to say. I've got a particular viewpoint. I think he's got an incredible catalog. He was a great musician. His band was kick-ass band. Songs and albums are all there. Hugely influential. Hell, he was in the bloody Traveling Wilburys.
That was my point. He was in with Bob Dylan, George Harrison,
exactly,
Roy Orbison, and Jeff Lynne.
I'm almost tempted to put him S tier because I think he's that important in rock.
Yeah,
but that's me.
And he was on King of the Hill.
Yeah, he was lucky.
Exactly. Yeah. Oh. I think Tom's an important figure in rock history, and I'm not exaggerating when I say that because you can see I just think he's that important. Is the songwriting and the particular sound that he got when he's in a lot of his records, where they'll use a lot of Rickenbackers and Gretches and stuff. Absolutely brilliant stuff. I mean, American Girl, you can't get better than that as a song. It's impossible in my opinion.
I don't know. I think I think like Learning to Fly is probably
That's great.
lyrically, Running Down a Dream is up there with American Girl as far as sound.
Last Dance with Mary Jane.
Yes,
Oh,
that's what I was looking for.
You
Last
just,
Dance with Mary Jane.
Reel them off, and everybody knows these songs.
Free Fallin' is just
Free
it's
Fallin',
an amazing song.
Great. Wide Open.
Yeah.
Stop Dragging My Heart Around and all these stuff. Yeah, there's just an endless catalog. But the albums were great that these songs came from. They're all brilliant.
Refugee.
albums.
That's another one.
Refugee. Yeah.
Won't Back Down.
Breakdown.
The Waiting.
From the early stuff. Breakdown. Great song.
It's the only song I don't like is "Don't Come Around Here No More," just because of the video.
Yeah.
Because it kind of pigeonholed him into that Mad Hatter look for a while.
That one's kind of the most artifice in it.
You got to remember that was
like,
made for the MTV era, so
Oh,
they,
yeah.
they were doing a lot of. Yeah.
Do either of you remember the SNL bit where David Spade and Dana Carvey were playing Bob Dylan and Tom Petty, and it was Tom Petty translating for Bob Dylan?
That's right. Yes.
I
remember they did a Mick Jagger Keith Richards one just like that.
Yeah.
As well. And it was talk English, Keith, for fuck, or Mick, for fuck's sake. Speak English. Oh no,
I have to agree with the S tier. There's just the sheer body of work alone puts him up there, but just again the songwriting, the cultural influence.
Yeah.
He's
a giant, and the band are brilliant.
Yeah.
Tom and Petty, and they're almost indistinguishable. Even if it was a Tom Petty album, I still thought of it as Tom Petty and the Heartbreakers. I think he's S tier. I mean, the guy's a legend, absolute legend.
Now that you've realized you are so
now
wrong.
that I was wrong.
No, you're not wrong.
I even heard that.
You said
You're not wrong.
Yeah, I just needed to confirm it, and I only heard it. I just recently heard that story. I'm like, really? Because I know Tom Petty's got a ton of great songs. So as I was re-listening to all this, I'm like, if he didn't write all this and producers did, then like that's kind of like takes some points away. But I take it back.
You're like Marge Simpson on the bus saying that the monkeys write their own songs. But the opposite.
So
why don't I have the monkeys on here?
Right on. Yeah, no, I S tier. Yeah, definitely. Very influential. Great catalog. Huge catalog. Absolutely.
Where?
Well, I said S tier.
Oh, you said S tier. Okay.
Yeah.
So yes, we have an S. All right. Next up, Van Halen.
S tier.
Yeah.
For which period?
Van Halen or Van Hagar?
Because I actually prefer Van Hagar.
Oh really?
Oh no, I'm Team Dave.
David Lee Roth.
And I love Sammy Hagar.
Yeah.
As an artist, I was always Team Dave.
The only knock I give to them is they blamed Van Halen's 3's failure on Gary Cherone, and he had nothing to do with that album other than singing on it. All he did was sing. All the songwriting, that was Eddie. So the album's failure is Eddie's fault, not Gary's.
Yes.
Let's just blame Valet Bertinelli.
Yeah.
I'm kind of biased because Running with the Devil. You gotta.
Well, yeah. They're definitely S tier. I mean, there's no doubt about it. Their cultural influence is huge, even through both periods of that.
Yeah, and Eddie just reinvented guitar playing for an entire generation and beyond.
Yeah.
I mean, it's difficult at this distance to express just how big an impact that first album was when to guys like us who were into rock who first heard it. It was like, I don't know, again, I was like 14 or something. I was like, what the God's name is that?
I think
And where can I get it? It was
We can
just
say, like,
visceral. It's a visceral impact, a completely new sound in metal, and
Holy moly! Yeah, no, I'm just looking at their discography, and
It's ridiculous.
I actually, if I have time, I actually have the 1984 on vinyl,
nice.
and I'm looking, and I'm like, oh man, 1984 was their 5th album, and there was like 8 hits on that. Like, dude,
Panama
Van Halen
is,
was
like one of the
killing
best
it.
rock songs out of the 80s.
yeah.
Top 10 out of the 80s.
Killers.
They're one of the greatest metal bands of all time, if not rock bands of all time in general. There's no doubt about it. Hugely influential. The songs are incredible. The musicianship is unbelievable. You can debate about the singing, I guess, as much as
And
you like, but-
Michael Anthony never gets his due as a bass player.
Oh, I know. He is phenomenal as a singer, as a backing singer.
The backing vocalist? Oh,
those
yeah.
backing vocals are invaluable when you listen to those Van Halen albums. He is an incredible backing singer. I mean, again, I might be taking a personal view of it because I've always loved them, and they had such a huge impact on me when they came out. But I think they're certainly not below A. They're possibly S. You could make an argument either way, I guess. But there's certainly no lower than A. And it's hard to think of a band in modern metal that's. I mean, it basically spawned a million bands. I mean, you wouldn't have all the 80s and 90s metal bands without Van Halen. That you know, even the ones that didn't particularly look like that, the big four of the whatever, they all would probably cite Van Halen as an enormous influence. So.
And David Lee Roth really loves Roy Orbison.
Yeah.
He
They did
does.
2 covers of his.
Hey, Dave Lee Roth is the most famous sheep herder in the world because he loves.
Oh,
He
nice.
loves. He's got sheepdogs and he loves going out herding sheep competitions. He does that for fun. So
Oh, nice.
whatever the term for that is, herding sheep.
Listen, I'm not saying I didn't dislike David Lee Roth. I love the David Lee Roth era, but I actually
Sure.
really do love the Van Hagar era.
Sammy's a great guy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Just because it seemed that they had it seemed a more mature period for their music. It was still great rock, but it wasn't as
Well,
I'm David
Well,
Lee
he-
Roth. I'm gonna fuck anything that walks.
Well, Sammy did bring a different element to it because he had all that experience of more mainstream rock in the 70s,
Right.
and he could also play a bit of guitar, and he's a great pedal lap steel guitar guy and all that stuff. He does some great steel guitar stuff.
And he's got a great vocal range.
well,
Yeah.
it's impressive too to have the sound of your band change so much, but still have success. Usually that kills bands, you know.
There's
when they
almost
change
like
so
some
much.
people believe that they had more success, somewhat, you know.
They had more
others-
commercial success. I mean,
Yeah,
they sold more albums and made more money, but culturally significant was the David Lee Roth. era.
yeah. My debate is whether it's A or S, and I mean, I'm tempted just because I love them so much to say S, but I'm trying to rationalize it, you know.
I think S is. I think they could go in S because culture, like everything hits. Like there's really nothing
Plus,
to
you
knock
have
them down.
Eddie's influence. You have the David Lee Roth's influence. Even Sammy Hagar's influence. You know,
Yeah,
there's just so many elements of that have stood the test of time.
If I could put it another way, are they a better band than a band that I love on their that's in the A tier, ELO? Yes, probably. Are they more influential than another band I love on there, Cheap Trick? Yes, they are. So I think they're S tier. Just for me, I think they've got enough to make them S.
What about the rest of you? S.
Paul's holding up the album, so. Where's Paul?
He's listening to them right now.
I thought you were
I'm not
phone-
paying attention. I'm totally.
He's listening to every. He's listening to every album as we speak on 300 speed.
Yeah. No, I agree. They're totally S. They're nothing really knocks them down to an A or B. So they got it all.
CJ S.
Really, that only blip was the Gary Sharon album, and that wasn't his fault.
No,
I blame that all on Eddie being an asshole. But it's still Eddie Van Halen. I mean, it's Eddie Van
there's
Halen.
nothing quite like seeing Eddie Van Halen live playing
Yeah.
that guitar. It's just the most incredible experience. Like
It's S tier for me. Plus, didn't he
Yes.
play the solo on Beat It?
he did play the solo and beat it. Yep.
What about you, Extra?
I'll
I
give
know
him-
you're
I'll give
fading
him
fast. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Okay. We only have one, I think, two more. We'll go
Two
through them
more.
quickly. Okay. Alice Cooper, where do we see him?
Are we talking Alice Cooper or Alice Cooper's band? Alice Cooper was the name of the band until he went solo, and then he took the name with him. I'm going to be pedantic here. Let's just talk about all of it, I guess. We'll say Alice
No.
and the band, and then we'll count
Yeah.
all the stuff he did after as Alice. That's a really tricky one, isn't it?
Because he has influence. I mean, there's no denying his
Oh.
influence.
Yeah, I mean, I I do love a lot of the 70s stuff.
I guarantee there's not going to be a Rob Zombie without Alice Cooper.
Oh
Right,
no,
that's true.
Alice is enormously influential, and I've seen him again. I've seen him live a couple of times. Brilliant. Although I never saw him in the 70s, I didn't see that original band. I've only seen him since. So I think those early Alice Cooper albums, Under My Wheels and all that stuff, is great. It's possibly seen as a little bit dated now. If I was to be critical, and I love it, so I'm trying to be critical me as opposed to I love Alice Cooper me, which I do. It could be seen that a lot of that's a little bit dated, and that latterly the strong albums were a lot less. There wasn't that many original material, much original material stuff in the last 20, 30 years that you would say, well, wow, that's a blinder.
I like Poison.
My thing on the cultural impact though is a little bit weird. Is I played in marching band.
Yeah.
For almost 8 years between junior high, high school, and college. Every marching band on the planet, even to this day,
Schools Out.
still plays Schools Out. Every single one. You will hear Schools Out at every high school game, college game. You will hear a marching band play that song. And it's been that way since I was in marching band in the 90s.
Is that a good or a bad thing?
No, it's a good thing. It's a great song. It's because it's got that energy, even though no one really pays attention to the lyrics of that song. But because it's kind of a weird song for schools to be playing.
It is. Yeah, it's like no more teachers, no more. Yeah.
Yeah. And of course, there's also the Wayne's World bit. The "We're not worthy. We're not worthy."
Milwaukee is actually
Or the good land.
yes.
And there's no underestimating just how great a guy Alice Cooper is. He's a wonderful human being, in my opinion.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Been married to the same woman since '75.
I know.
Oh, nice.
I think he's A tier. I think he's A tier for me. He's very influential. He's got a lot of material, and his stage shows have been extremely influential.
Yeah. Paul, where are
Yeah,
you?
for the influence, I gotta give him props. But I always put Alice in like the same. Personally, I probably would put him in B tier, but that's just personally because I'm not too familiar with his,
His
deep
oeuvre.
catalog.
Yeah, I wouldn't put him on the same page as Ozzy, to be honest.
Here's the other thing, though. I wonder what it would have changed for him culturally if he'd have gotten "Live and Let Die," or no, "Man with the Golden Gun."
Oh yeah, right.
'Cause he actually wrote a theme song for that Bond film.
It's a good song.
Yeah,
I like that song.
Yeah.
Never heard it.
He almost had a Bond theme.
Yeah,
Nice.
it's a good track. Yeah, you can buy it. It is available. Yeah, you can get
Yeah,
it.
he recorded it on a separate album.
What's the name of it?
"Man with the Golden Gun."
Oh, Man with the Gold Gun. Just gonna
Yeah.
nothing. Okay. Yeah, I'll have to look that up. Okay, so I got a B and an A.
I was B.
B. So 2 Bs. What about you, CJ?
Yeah, that one is really hard because it really straddles that line. I mean, because of the actual material that people know, that's mainly the '70s stuff. And Poison, Be My Frankenstein, that kind of stuff in the '80s. It still had some relevance then, but it's not as lasting, I think, as the Ramones or Ozzy or bands like that. So for me, he sits right in between that A and B, but I got to put him in a B.
Okay.
I think a good way of putting it is everyone knows who Alice Cooper is as an individual, but not everybody necessarily knows the music. They know who he is as a personality.
Now, I am putting Toto on there because even though they don't have a big body of work, I don't think.
Hold on.
Africa is freaking amazing. I love that song.
Drummers everywhere hate Rosanna because that Purdy shuffle is almost impossible to play unless you're Jeff Porcario. But for me, Toto's influence is not simply just the albums that they put out. Well, one, they did the soundtrack to Dune, which was awesome.
Yeah.
But two, Toto is not really a band per se. They're a group of studio musicians.
Just state of mind.
Yeah, because they didn't have a set lineup really. They just had, they had a few key members, but they were mainly the studio musicians that they all worked with in the industry at that time that were making music together when they weren't working on other people's albums. They had like Jeff Porcaro, Steve Gadd played in that band. I mean, just the musicianship alone is S tier. Because like I said, they played on some of the most influential records of the 70s and 80s.
Yeah,
But as
and
a band on their own, I've got to go B tier.
yeah, I think they probably deserve a little of an extra point for trying to rhyme Kilimanjaro with something else, but Serengeti, and that's got to be worth extra points. I think B's a reasonable thing. I mean, the musician, no one would deny the musicianship, but I think in terms of public impact and longevity, they're probably not like, you don't get people walking around going, "Oh, those guys in Poco, they're brilliant." They don't know who they are necessarily, and that's not their fault. It's not Poco's fault. It's,
And my daughter hates Sarah, the song.
it's kind of like
That's
a
her name.
Steely. It's like a Steely Dan thing. Great musicians, but nobody really knows much about the guys, and it's kind of a
Yeah.
lot of session guys. And I don't think they've really had that many records that you would consider to be like in the public consciousness for
Right.
a lengthy period of time.
They're more known for their hits.
Yeah.
For Africa, Roseanne, and Sarah.
Hold
Those
the
are really
line.
their three. Hold the line was a
Hold
good
the
one.
Line's a great song. Yeah.
Yeah.
I love 99, but I'm just weird because it's the only rock song I can think of that has a Bacardi third in it.
Well, they deserve extra points for that too.
And that's just me being a pedantic musician.
Yeah, I think B is a reasonable place for them to land because I don't think anyone would suggest their influence was greater than that, and I think they're a niche for some people.
Yeah.
Well, I said they're more the sum of their parts. It's
They're
the
a musicians band.
Yeah.
outside of Toto.
Yeah,
So, Paul, you down with the B?
Yeah, B sounds good.
Zero, you down with the B?
Yep. Down with the B.
I'm assuming
Okay.
you're going to be S tier just because of Africa.
nice,
Yes.
nice distribution.
Devil's gonna go to bed. He's going to put on some headphones. He's going to
Yeah,
listen to
I'm-
Africa.
I do
You're
think
gonna see Ozzy and Toto in there tomorrow.
a single
Esther.
tier.
I do think it's great that we've ended up with two in the D's. We have a double D in effect.
Anything you guys want to change real quick? Anything that you want to fight for to move up or down real quick?
I almost want to put Peter Frampton back in the void for the Sgt. Pepper's album.
Oh God, yeah, blast him into oblivion for that for sure.
Yeah,
He's in the
Only-
void.
Literally, the only good part of that album was the Aerosmith and the Alice Cooper track.
Aerosmith were good. They did come together, didn't they? Yeah, that was
Yeah, because Aerosmith's cover of that actually, I think, got more airplay than the Beatles version of it.
Yeah, I think that was possibly a misstep in their careers.
You think?
Everybody involved.
That movie's so bad.
So you
It's
guys
so
you
bad.
really want to move him down to the void, or was that a joke? You know.
I think there's a case to be made for some of them to be left in the void, but that's
Yeah, well, no, I mean, he does deserve at least to be on the list, but yeah, no higher than me. But again, that Sgt. Pepper's Lonely Hearts Club Band was a horrible idea and horribly executed from
probably
start,
be executed.
from start to finish.
All right.
Yeah,
If you
so
want to watch
every-
a horrible movie, but you love the Beatles, just try to sit through it.
Yeah.
So everything else looks good. We locking this in.
Yeah, it's a nice distribution,
Yeah.
you know.
Yeah.
Like it's not
Oh.
top heavy,
Yeah.
which shows we've done a reasonable job of analysing it. We've not all just leapt to top or bottom, you know.
Yeah. See, if this was the 60s, then it'd be all S tier and would be very boring.
In the 60s, we'd all be so stoned we wouldn't know we're in.
Yeah,
Even a screen
yeah.
in front of us.
All right. So we're locked in. All right. Get rid of that. Stop sharing. Okay. All right. Now we'll do the outros and I'll get you guys out of here because I'm sure half you are asleep. All right. First, that 70s rock fan. What do you got going on? What do you
What
want
have
people
I
to look
got?
for?
I think I've got a channel. Have I got a channel? Yeah, well, tomorrow is my regular I do a show regularly Mondays at 3 p.m. Mountain Time. The name of that show is usually It's Only Talk and Roll. I do have other rotating shows that I do on Canon Film Club and Cult Comedy. Tomorrow it's only Rock and Roll Talk and Roll show. See, it's so late I can't even speak. Sorry for you young people, I'm old. But tomorrow's show on that 70s Rock Fan channel is about the Kinks. I'm going to do a Kinks special, partly in tribute to their longtime keyboard player, John Gosling, who died the other day, but partly because I just love the Kinks, and they're one of my favourite bands of all time, and it's long overdue that I talked about them on the show. So that is tomorrow on my channel at 3 p.m. Mountain Time. Be there or be rectangular.
Sounds kinky.
It
Paul,
You
what do
there,
you got going on?
dodecahedron.
Be do it. I can never even say that. She had a wonderful shape. It was rhomboid, I think. Yes.
What do you got going on, Paul?
Just not much. Check me out on my channel, Paul Hadouken, YouTube, Rumble, Twitter as well. I'm just at the moment just playing games, and I have to force myself to do some more music streams because I got to do your the theme song for the Star Trek thing and all that, and I'm just been pushing things off. I'm like, I'd rather play video games for a bit, but I gotta sit down here and write and finally get to it.
Yeah.
But
You gotta go buy the kazoo for
gotta
my
buy that
closer.
kazoo. You know.
Get a Kazubi Kazobo.
Who is it?
There's another idea for a video for me. Kazoos and rock. I've
There
done
you go.
flutes and I did some other thing, and I think I'm going to do bagpipes. Kazoos. Well, I know what I did. I did the wah, 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 the voice box thing, not vocal,
Talk
whatever.
box.
Talk box.
Talk
I did
box,
top-
yeah.
I did top 5 talk box in rock, but I need to do vocoder.
Have you done
Not
yodeling
vocoder.
in rock yet?
kazoo. Sorry,
Yodeling.
yodeling.
There's only one song that actually even works.
Yodeling.
And then
Well,
the,
I can think of
Hocus Pocus by Focus.
Oh God! Well, there's at least 2 of theirs. I've got that in it. Then you go, yep.
Beautiful.
There's a live version of that, I think, from
Yeah.
Japan. And
Yeah.
it's just wild. It
I
looks like
love that
Galron
track.
from Star Trek. Like his eyes just
That's the ultimate wig out track. That one.
Yeah.
Hocus Pocus. It's just mental.
I mean, because
Yeah,
the riff in between is so good. I mean, Jan Ackerman is a phenomenal guitar player. He never gets talked about. That riff is just straight up metal. But then you get to the middle, the section where he's yodeling and like whistling and fluting, and you're like, "What acid trip am I on right now?"
That's right. Yeah. Who is this? Who are these guys? And what are they smoking? And where can I get it?
Exactly.
Yeah. It could do the top 1 yodeling songs in rock, and then
CJ, where can people find you, and what do you got coming up, man?
Yeah, you can find me on my channel at Forgotten One Music. I've got the Forgotten One cast, which I've recently started. Although this last week went horribly wrong.
Yeah, I was saying I was looking forward to it too. I was streaming some gaming, and I'm like, oh, CJP's gonna be on in 2 hours, so.
Yeah, that went all sorts of wrong. I've got Flawed rescheduled. He's going to be on the 31st.
Nice.
But this week on Friday at 7 p.m. Central, I've got 32 Flavors of Nick Weiser on, and we are going to just talk some classic metal.
Nice.
nice.
And then the week
Cool.
after that, I've got Etep Wakuians coming on, and we're talking about John Carpenter. And not as a movie director, as a musician and a composer.
Fun. Nice.
Cool.
Because everyone forgets that he wrote the music for pretty much most of his movies, including that bastardization Big Trouble in Little China music video. That video is horrible.
Okay, Extra. What do you got going on, man?
Yeah, so this week, Thursday, I've got my show, Figure Action Podcast on YouTube. And if you're into collecting action figures, we talk things that are going on in the industry, news, anything that we've got our hands on. If you want to hear about anything in the collecting sphere, we're the place to go. Also on Saturday, we've got the meme stream. So I'm the producer for the Legion of Memers. We've got a guest lined up already. I'll wait for the promo to come out for that. And yeah, I'll be back here next Sunday.
Cool.
And of course, if you like memes, follow me on Twitter, extra008. And anybody looking to get booked for the Legion of Memers meme stream, hit me up there.
I
Yeah.
want to go back on. No, I'm kidding.
All their ats are in the description. Follow them, follow their channels, watch every show they put out. They're awesome. Thank
What are you
so
doing
mu-
next? So I'm sorry,
Yeah.
Devil. What's next week's episode?
Next week is board games, I believe.
Nice.
Best board games.
Mm.
Yeah, I've,
Well, I
I've
can't wait
gotta-
to argue how Monopoly's terrible.
Oh yeah, it's the worst board.
Controversial. All right. Well,
Awesome.
thank you for coming on. Thank you to the chat and everyone watching. Please like, subscribe, hit the bell, do all the good shit. And we will see you next week. And hopefully you'll enjoy that one too.